Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Zionist Organization of America Superstar Gala. At this time, we ask you all to kindly find your seats. Our program is beginning.
For 124 years, the Zionist Organization of America has stood firm as the Jewish people's most reliable ally and protector. ZOA led the fight in the U.S. to re-establish the Jewish state 5 generations ago. In the 20th century, it stood by Israel as the young country matured into a leading nation on the world stage despite all odds. Today, under the 28-year stewardship of Morton Klein, ZOA flourishes as a nonpartisan advocate for a strong U.S.-Israel alliance, Israel's unequivocal right to defend herself, and dismantling policies that threaten Israel's safety and Jewish life. Anti-Israel rhetoric and overt anti-Semitic attacks have risen to alarming levels. On college campuses, on social media, in corporate boardrooms, and even halls of government, open malice toward the state of Israel has become the new normal. The winds of change demand ZOA's unflinching support for the Jewish state now more than ever before. ZOA brings the fight for Israel to 4 main arenas: media and education, government advocacy, student support, and law and justice. The message about Zionism and anti-Israel bias has been clear and consistent for decades. Promote the truth about Israel's right to its land, its claim to Jerusalem, and the morality of its actions in the face of violent threats. Among its nonpartisan positions, ZOA has long held that an undivided Jerusalem and Jewish state, including Judea and Samaria, is just, and that a two-state solution would create a substantial terrorist threat. Media appearances, leadership programs, events, and educational initiatives organized by the ZOA influence the global community toward greater appreciation for the modern state of Israel and its accomplishments. ZOA has earned the unparalleled trust of high-ranking officials in both the U.S. and Israeli governments through years of relationship building. Full-time ZOA professionals meet with senators and congressmen to lobby for the issues that are important to both countries. Notably, ZOA publicly opposed the Oslo Accords, Gaza withdrawal, and Iran deal, while pushing for the U.S. Embassy's move to Jerusalem and recognition of Israel's sovereignty over the Golan Heights. ZOA officials routinely testify before Congress on key issues such as anti-BDS legislation and run awareness campaigns to support the appointment of pro-Israel officials and combat those hostile to Israel. Over 100 campuses across the country are served by ZOA community building events, speaker series, mentoring groups, educational programs, seminars, and student trips to Israel. In an effort to promote healthy discourse around Zionism and Israel, ZOA President Morton Klein has personally traveled to a number of major universities for speaking engagements to tell the truth about Israel and encourage thoughtful debate among Jewish and non-Jewish students. By training the next generation to effectively advocate for Israel and refute the anti-Zionist propaganda flooding campuses, ZOA works to ensure that students feel safe and proud to express their Jewish identity and Zionism at college. In 2002, ZOA established the Center for Law and Justice to defend Israel in the courts, litigating the most complex lawsuits on behalf of Jewish students, terror victims, Jerusalem's legal status, and other cases with ripple effects for Israeli citizens and Jews across the world. ZOA led the groundbreaking fight to reinterpret Title VI of the Civil Rights Act to protect Jewish students against discrimination, has filed numerous amicus briefs with the Supreme Court to clarify anti-Jewish policies, and fought for Israel to be listed as the birthplace on U.S. passports for citizens born in Jerusalem. The Zionist Organization of America's founders dreamt of peace and dignity for the Jewish people in their rightful homeland. 124 years later, ZOA is stronger than ever, but the fight for Israel's future is still on, and we're not slowing down anytime soon.
Good evening, everybody. Good evening. Thank you. It is a tremendous honor to be back with you. Of course, I'm Rita Cosby, but most important than my TV hosting and my radio hosting, I am a stalwart supporter of Israel and will always be. We have an incredible program tonight, and you will be hearing from some true devotees of the State of Israel and what it means to fight for freedom. This is the biggest and most important Zionist event of the year, the ZOA Superstar Gala. And thank you all for being here tonight. Absolutely. This year's theme is the fight for Israel is more important than ever. We know what happened on October 7th. That must never, ever happen again. And absolutely. We look to see now what happened to Israel, the horrors that were thrust on Israel on October 7th. And yet, here we are. Israel is standing strong against Iran, the head of the snake. The world is supporting Israel. And now we have somebody in the White House who's coming in who is 100% for Israel. As we know, President Trump, of course, Elise Stefanik, I think about Mike Huckabee, so many friends of ZOA. And that means that Israel will have unwavering support, as it always should. For me, it's always so emotional to be here with you guys tonight. Many of you know my story. My father was Polish Catholic, but my father was in Warsaw when the Nazis invaded, and my father decided to stay and fight. And then he helped those in the ghetto and outside the ghetto, because my father knew, thank you, my father knew that Israel's fight was the world's fight. And I am so proud of what my father accomplished. And my grandparents, I just learned recently, were harboring some of the most well-known and most wanted Jews in the world. So I am so proud to be here with all of you tonight. Thank you. We are going to start tonight's program because we have some tremendous speakers and some wonderful friends of Israel. And I see so many familiar faces. I know how busy all of you are. But for me, I can't think of a more important moment to be here to show support for Israel, to show support for one of the most important countries in the world. And that alliance between U.S. and Israel is unwavering, and we will see it on the forefront from now till the end of time. There is no doubt that America and Israel are going to be like this, and we will see that even more so, I believe, in the next 4 years. How lucky are we to be here tonight? I feel like Israel's on a rocket ship, and it will be going to the top. So it's an honor to be here tonight, absolutely. We're going to start, as we always do. If you could all please stand, because we are going to do the national anthems, and we will be hearing from the beautiful guys who were singing before, the Y Studs. Thank you, everybody.
Oh, say, can you see by the dawn's early light what so proudly we've hailed at the twilight's last gleaming, whose broad stripes and bright stars through the perilous fight o'er the ramparts we watched were so gallantly streaming, and the rocket's red glare, the bursting in air, gave proof through the night that our flag was still there. Oh, say does that star-spangled banner yet wave o'er the land of the free and the home of the brave. Do 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 ah. Kolod balevav penima nefesh Yehudi homia ufatei mizrach kadima ayin letzion Sophia. Oh, lo avda tikvateinu, hatikva bashnot alpayim, liot am choshi be'arteinu, Eretz Zion, Yerushalayim. Oh, liot am choshi be'arteinu, Eretz Zion, Yerushalayim.
The next song we're going to be performing is the Misha Berach for the Chayalim, the prayer on behalf of the soldiers in Israel. Misha Berach Avoteinu, Avraham, Yitzchak, veYaakov, Hu Yevarech, and Chayalei Tzva Hagana LiYisrael, Hu Yevarech, and Chayalei Tzva Hagana LiYisrael, Hu Yevarech, and Chayalei Tzva Hagana LiYisrael, Haomdim al Mishmar Artzeinu, Ve'arei Eloheinu, Migevul HaLevanon Li'ad Midbar Mitzrayim, Umin Hayam Hagadol Alevo Arava, Bayavasho, Vayam, Hu Yevarech, and Chayalei Tzva Hagana LiYisrael, Yitain Adonai et Oveinu Hakamim Aleinu Nigafim Lifnehem, Hakadosh Baruch Hu Yishmor V'Yatzil et Chayaleinu Mikol Tzara V'Tzukah Mikol Nega U'Machala V'Yishlach Bracha V'Yatzlacha B'Chol Ma'aseh Yadenu. יד בארצנו תחתיהם, ויעטרם בחטא ישועה, ויעטר ניצחון. ויקוים בהם הכתוב. כי אדוני אלוהיכם, ההולך עמכם, להילחם לכם, עם אויביכם, להושיע אתכם, ונאמר אמן. הוא יברך את חיילי צבא ההגנה לישראל. הוא יברך את חיילי צבא ההגנה לישראל.
You guys, another round of applause, please, for the Y Studs. How beautiful. That was incredible. And of course, we are praying for the Israeli soldiers. And tonight, we are praying for those hostages, that they all come home, all 100 or so. Let's pray they all come home. And including 4 to 5 Americans, too, as you all know. They are all in our thoughts and prayers, and of course, the hostage families, too, tonight. We must think of them and keep them in our thoughts so much. I want to begin the evening by also thanking our dinner co-chairs. If they could stand up, please, real quick, and we want to make sure we give them a big round of applause. Mr. Robert D. Amden, where is Robert? Where is Robert? There you are. Thank you, Robert. Also, Melanie and Gerard Schreiber, where are you guys? Thank you. There they are. Thank you. And also, Mr. Edward Lewis. Where is Mr. Edward Lewis? Where are you? Would you please stand up? Are you there? He's not here tonight, but we thank him, of course, for his incredible contributions. Also, I know he's going to be embarrassed, but I want to make sure we give Alan J. a huge round of applause for all you do. Nancy Hollander, too, who is so stalwart. We love Nancy. Howard Katzoff, who is not here tonight, but is such a huge supporter, of course, of ZOA always. And also, you will hear from him later, but the great Mort Klein, who this would not be possible without. We have a jam-packed program, guys, so without further ado, I want to introduce our first speaker, who will introduce our first esteemed honoree. Our speaker here is someone who is beloved in America. He's an incredible businessman. He has been my friend for many, many years. He is also a stalwart supporter of Israel, and I think one of the great American patriots out there. Please welcome everybody, the great founder and CEO of Newsmax, Chris Ruddy. I love you. I'm so proud of you.
Thank you so much. It's a great honor. And to be introduced, Rita. Rita has a show on Newsmax. So you're even more enthusiastic.
Oh, thank you.
I heard a little secret. We got to keep it. It's her birthday tomorrow, so wish her a happy birthday.
Thank you.
So you look younger and younger.
Thank you.
I am so glad to be here. Now, you should know the history of how we all ended up together with Gary and being the honoree tonight. I've been a strong supporter of the ZOA and Mort for many, many years. I was actually at Mort's first ZOA dinner that he had at the Hyatt across the street in the early 90s when Senator Shelby was honored. And Mort has really carried the torch tremendously through the years. And he invited me down in Florida about 2 years ago when Kevin McCarthy and the great Mark Levin was being honored. And so we went down and I invited Gary to come. And Gary hadn't been to a ZOA dinner before. And he was I saw his level of excitement. Gary gets very excited about things when he really gets into them. And he called me the next day and he said, I love everything that Moore Klein said. I love the ZOA. I think it's fighting. And this is before October 7th. And you were seeing that the growing threat of anti-Semitism. And we got to know each other through a mutual friend. You may have heard of his name, Donald Trump. A little name dropping there. Gary was an early supporter of Donald Trump, early supporter of Newsmax, but early supporter of Donald Trump before in the 2016 election. He has a habit of looking at political candidates and seeing way ahead of everyone else. And he saw that this real estate guy, who he'd been in the real estate, had real potential in politics. And really, you were the driving force for the president in the state of Ohio and one of his earliest donors and supporters. And Gary has a lifetime of achievements, starting with his real estate fame and fortune in the state of Ohio, Schottenstein Real Estate. It is a multi-billion-dollar real estate company, and he's done tremendous things. It's very nice to say, hey, you're a great success in business, and that's an important achievement. You're helping society, you're helping employ thousands of people. But Gary went well beyond that. He is involved in a tremendous amount of philanthropy in the state of Ohio, political causes that don't benefit him, that benefit what he believes the importance of this country. The same thing, Donald Trump does nothing for his real estate business, but Gary believed that we needed a president that would be strong, support our values, support the state of Israel. I would describe Gary as somebody who's extremely passionate. Every time I've seen him, I always feel this passion about him. He's passionate about his Judaism. He really cares about his faith. He's very passionate about his family. He's got a wonderful family. He's always talking to me about his kids. That's always a great sign. Brian and Corey and Toria and Brett and Betsy, always. And then, of course, he's very passionate about his love affair with his wife, Terry, who's here. She's actually photographing me, so she can't clap right now. So it's always beautiful to see, but he's had this tremendous love of family, love of country, love of God, and love of the state of Israel, which I believe is America's closest ally in the world and our true sister democracy. And we must do everything in our power to support her during this time, but also fight against the enemy. And I feel that's part of our mission at Newsmax with the media. You know, it's really, Israel has a battle with various neighbors that don't like it and terrorist groups that don't want it and destroy it, but it has a battle with the media all over the world, and the American media are among the biggest culprits of distorting the truth and making life difficult. We saw it recently in President Trump's campaign, where the Media Research Center said 90% of the press coverage against President Trump was negative against him. I mean, any pretense of fairness and lack of bias has just completely gone. ZOA, I think Newsmax is breaking through on that and getting information out to the public. We're reaching regularly about 40 million Americans. ZOA has done a tremendous job. Mort Klein has done an incredible job in doing that. So I'm very proud to have Mort on Newsmax. And with no further ado, I want to introduce and invite up here the great, great man, Gary Schottenstein.
It's an honor to call on Gary Schottenstein. Gary and Terry really were the force behind this. It's their vision to bring a Zionist organization chapter here. Gary's not letting me fully introduce him, but he's incredibly generous and an incredible supporter of Israel and believer in Torah values. And it's the marriage of those twin values that create a strong foundation for support of Israel. Yeah.
I just want to say it's been an honor to be your president, and so many of my friends are in this room, and they happen to be Jewish. And they said tonight that no president has done more for Israel than I have. And if that weren't true, this man would come down on me, I would have a big problem.
Everybody, a big round of applause for Gary.
Well, the Zionist Organization of America is thrilled and privileged to give the Louis D. Brandeis Award, our highest honor that we give to someone who deserves it more than anyone else I can recall that we've given it to. You've already heard a man who's deeply committed to Israel, to the Jewish people, to Judaism, and to his family. So it's an honor to present the Louis Brandeis Award to Gary Schottenstein.
Thank you. Thank you. Thanks so much. Thank you. Good evening, everyone. Honored award recipients, esteemed leaders of the USA and the State of Israel and worldwide Jewish community, our supporters, family, and friends of the Zionist Organization of America. With deep humility and pride, I am blessed to be awarded this highest honor and the treasured privilege of receiving this cherished Louis D. Brandeis Award. The lengthy list of all of the previous recipients consists of dozens of legendary leaders. At this time, and particularly since October 7th, there are so many others who have done so much more than myself. And I wish to share this honor with those others, some of them unsung and all praiseworthy. I also commend the other recipients honored tonight for all their accomplishments on behalf of our people and nations. When one receives an award or honor, I believe they should want to act as if they've only just begun to earn the accolades. This is not a culmination of achievements, but the opportunity to continue to strive to make our world better. The ZOA, founded as an organization in 1897 by Louis Brandeis and others, have closely partnered together the names of Zionist, which is synonymous with Israel, and America. Justice Brandeis, who was the first Jew appointed to the Supreme Court in 1916, famously declared that the ideals of America since 1776, those ideals of democracy, life, liberty, the pursuit of happiness, and justice for all, were almost identical to the Jewish ideals and statutes found in the Torah and Talmud, and from which the Jews have diligently practiced for thousands of years. I believe that America and Judaism are so aligned and have been so perfect for each other that they were a match made in heaven. In fact, recently, some DNA testing concluded that Christopher Columbus was probably a Sephardic Jew who had to conceal his faith due to the conditions in Spain and Europe. He landed in America, Hispaniola, on October 12, 1492, which was on the Jewish festival of Sukkot. Maybe his real birth name was Chaim Cohen. The commandments from Judaism and faith in God have always been a central part and fabric of America, including our seal, the Pledge of Allegiance, laws and oaths, money, obligations, customs, cultures, and the expected treatment of our fellow mankind. Everyone should be aware of how Jews, including Justice Brandeis, have been influential in this country, from involvement with George Washington and other presidents, leaders in society in general, even without having much authority or access. We should be proud to continue to be major contributors within the core of Judeo-Christian philosophies. Our relationships with our fellow Americans are ongoing, have greatly improved, and I believe are very strong today. Even though there have been increases in overt anti-Semitic incidents, the Jewish people in Israel, in my opinion, have never been more supported, accepted, and helped by an incredible majority of certainly over 90% of our great American non-Jewish citizens and neighbors. In God we trust, on our money, is an integral cornerstone in our land of the free and home of the brave. In a recent Torah portion, we read about the Lech Lecha commandment to our father Abraham. Hashem commanded Avram to go forth from your land to a land I will give you to make a great nation, and all of the families of the earth will be blessed through you in creating a new civilization. Jews made this similar parallel journey leading to our proud history in America and benefited by the great success of the ZOA, which enhanced our match made in heaven. It needs to be very clear that let my people go and never again are indisputable and non-negotiable credos in the essence of our people. The Jewish people have the notarized deed for the land of Israel as our eternal inheritance, and it is signed by Hashem in the Torah. We have the deed. I am convinced we now have a unique golden opportunity to assert our influence and produce dynamic results in the USA and the world. Jews should aggressively take advantage of the power and success we have earned in so many areas, including in money and finance, the media, politics, and society, to take the offensive against countries, institutions, colleges, groups for their knowingly or unintentional actions, voting, and displays of anti-Semitism in not supporting Israel or Jews in the diaspora. In conclusion, I am proud to state that I meet and have been impressed by so many younger people, friends of my children and grandchildren, and also many regular and normal Americans. I am extremely optimistic about the future of our people in our great country. In keeping with the philosophies of Justice Brandeis, we are both American Jews and also Jewish Americans. Let's pray for love, peace, freedom, justice, and brotherhood from sea to shining sea and in our world. That match, which I claimed was made in heaven, is now, since 1948, a great marriage made in heaven. I want to thank Chris Ruddy for his special introduction and friendship. I want to give distinct recognition to Mort Klein and with assistance by Rita Klein for their amazing leadership of our great COA and on behalf of the entire Jewish nation, Israel, and the USA. I am greatly blessed by my beloved wife, Terry, and my precious children and grandchildren, and I love you dearly. I am sharing this award with you, and also in accordance with the values, beliefs, and memory of my late parents and grandparents. It is gratifying also to have so many family and friends also here tonight, and thank you for joining us. May Hashem continue to bless all of us. God bless America. Am Yisrael Chai.
What a beautiful speech, and what an amazing, another round of applause, please, for Gary, please. Well, we have a lot of incredible people to hear from tonight, so moving right along, I want to bring up ZOA National Board Chairman Ruben Margolis to introduce our next esteemed honoree. Ruben, please.
I can't see anybody, but I know you're all out there. I'd like to give a shout out to the Yeshiva University studs who did a phenomenal job. Let's all hear it for them. And they're real studs. So if anybody wants to pass on some telephone numbers, feel free. Before I introduce our next honoree, I have, as chairman of the board, I'd like to make a request of all of you. On your tables, there are cards, donation cards. We're an organization that basically operates on funding from individuals, from people. We don't get any government support. We need your support in order to help Israel. And you've heard, and if you like what we do, and when you hear everything that we do, you can't help but be impressed. Under the leadership of who I call my fearless leader, Mort Klein, we've done a lot, and we can do more. You've heard of some of our connections with the administration to be, and we need your support to do everything. And I look forward to hearing from you and getting your donations. Miriam Edelstein had to remain in Israel and will not be able to join us this evening. On her behalf, I am honored to be presenting the ZOA's Miriam and Sheldon G. Edelstein Defender of Israel Award to His Excellency Ambassador Gilad Erdan. That's right. For his advocacy on behalf of Israel and the Jewish people. Ambassador Erdan currently serves as Global President of Magen David Adom. In December, he will assume the role of Chair of the Israeli Space Industries, best known for the Iron Dome and David Sling. That's right, anti-missile systems. Previously, Ambassador Erdan served as Israel's ambassador to the United States, and for the past 4 years, as Israel's ambassador to the United Nations. He was a member of Knesset for 17 years and held several ministerial positions, including Minister of Public Security, Strategic Affairs, and Environmental Protection. As one of Israel's most prominent voices, Ambassador Erdan has been instrumental in defending and advocating for the Jewish state on the global stage and beyond, especially in the wake of the October 7th attacks. He exemplifies Sheldon Adelstein's most favorite maxim. He used to say, "Stand up for what you believe, even if you stand alone." For 4 years, Ambassador Erdan has defended Israel at the UN. I can only imagine how lonely he must have felt at times. Speaking at the United Nations, he stood up to evil and defiantly defended Israel's right to defend itself and exposed the hypocrisy of the United Nations' vicious anti-Israel rhetoric. The UN is the main impediment to peace, he declared, a haven for terrorists, while reminding the world body, that many have tried to destroy us, from the most powerful empires to the most evil decrees, but all have failed. The Jewish people are the eternal people, and the state of Israel is here to stay. Mr. Ambassador, you are a staunch and outstanding advocate for Israel. When it seems that the world has lost its mind, you have often stood alone. Your voice, the sole defender of our right to live in peace in the God-given nation-state of the Jewish people. Your unwavering dedication exemplifies Israel's resilience, determination, and strength. There's no more deserving person to receive the ZOA's Miriam and Sheldon G. Adelstein Defender of Israel Award than you. Please look at the videos before he comes up.
the Human Rights Council's obsessive anti-Israel bias embodied once again by this report. Its only place is in the dustbin of anti-Semitism, and that is exactly how we shall treat it. If you want a real ceasefire, here is the right address. Remember, many have tried to destroy us, from the most powerful of empires to the most evil of decrees, but all have failed. We are the eternal people, and Israel is here to stay.
Please give a warm ZOA welcome to His Excellency Ambassador Gilad Erdan.
And you guys, we're going to take a picture over here.
We have to take a picture.
We're going to take a picture of you over here,
Thank you, Ruben, for that wonderful introduction. And thank you to the ZOA for this prestigious award. I'm a little bit excited. First and foremost, I want to thank the namesakes of this award, Dr. Miriam and Sheldon Adelson, two extraordinary defenders of Israel. They deserve a round of applause. Miriam and dear Sheldon of blessed memory have and continue to be true giants. Their dedication to Israel has inspired generations. To receive a Okay, let's not give them attention that they do not deserve. Yeah, thank you. To receive an award bearing their names is more than an honor. It's a sacred responsibility to strengthen and continue their mission. I also express my deepest gratitude to my fellow honorees, Gary Schottenstein, Brigadier General Amir Avivi, Shabbos Kestenbaum, and my dear friend Ambassador Friedman. Each one of you, in your own ways and actions, has and continues to strengthen the Jewish people and our homeland. And finally, I want to thank my dear, dear friend Mort Klein, President of the ZOA, whom I know for, I think, almost 3 decades. Mort, your unwavering commitment to Israel and Zionism is truly remarkable. Under your leadership, the ZOA has become a beacon of truth and a staunch defender of Israel. You are not only a trusted ally and friend, but also an inspiration to us all. Thank you from the bottom of my heart. Now let's get to work. Friends, in this dark year, an unexpected ray of light emerged. A generation of lions rose in Israel, defending our homeland with unbreakable resolve. Yeah, they deserve it. And you know, their courage has made one thing clear. Our enemies can never defeat us on the conventional battlefield. They don't have a chance. Never. Oh, you're still here. Yeah. For sure. Palestine never existed, by the way. So, they don't have a chance to defeat our military. So, what is our enemy's strategy? How do they think they can annihilate us when our military can overpower them? Following the heinous October 7th massacre, they knew we would retaliate with unprecedented force. So again, I ask, what secret weapon did they count on to ensure their survival? This weapon is not only guns, not only rockets, but the United Nations, the House of Lies. Our enemies, they knew that while the IDF can crush them militarily, the UN would rush to tie our hands, to falsely brand us as human rights abusers, all to stop and prevent our victory. The UN is not just biased. It is today a weapon in the terrorist arsenal to help them survive. What would the UN's founders say if they saw their creation today? An institution born to prevent genocide has been hijacked by those who plot it. Roosevelt is turning in his grave. Listen to this. Today, out of the UN's 193 members, 56, nearly one-third are Muslim countries. And they obviously support the Palestinians at the UN in every war against the Jewish state, even if we are fighting a terror organization. They're afraid of having internal uprisings, so they align themselves with the radical entity. What's even more disturbing is that over half of the UN today are not even democracies. And when the UN is comprised of mostly non-democracies, what happens? Moral distortions. Right now, dear friends, Cuba, Sudan, Somalia, and Eritrea, great human rights defenders, are on the Human Rights Council. You can't make this up. And for all of you who care about women's rights, I have a comforting message. Saudi Arabia was chosen recently to chair the UN's Commission on the Status of Women. And when it comes to Israel, the UN's distorted makeup paves the way for unbelievable bias and injustice. It's mind-boggling, but currently, the President of the International Court of Justice, ICJ, the very court on a witch hunt to accuse Israel of genocide, where is he from? Lebanon. Yeah, that's right. A judge from a country at war with Israel now sits in judgment over us. What an absurdity. So Israel, a country that represents only 0.1% of the world's population, we are less than 10 million people, we receives, you know how many condemnations every year at the UN? 70% of the UN's condemnation, which means that we get more condemnations than Russia, Syria, North Korea, and Iran combined. And friends, since October 7th, we have all witnessed a new law, even for the UN. Over 400 days have passed with our hostages in captivity, yet the Security Council hasn't held even one single meeting to advance their release. And not a single UN body has even condemned Hamas. Disgusting. The conclusion, friends, is that today the UN has become a stain on humanity. But this stain, but let me give you another fact. This stain, you know how much it costs? $75 billion per year. And you know who is paying for this? You, the US. You are still the biggest funders of the UN, almost $20 billion every year. You are literally financing an institution run by dictators and jihadists. Friends, the UN must be defunded. Defunded. I am hopeful that the Trump administration will get this done. President Trump understands what a scam looks like. Remember UNRWA? That UN agencies breeding terror? Well, President Trump saw right through them. He cut off their funding, just like that. $0 for terror, $0 for anti-Semitism. Now it's time to do the same to the entire UN. Every American tax dollar sent to the UN today is a dollar funding our shared enemies. The time has come to defund the UN completely. And together, we can end this madness. But as long as the UN spews lies, we will never stay silent. We must fight back and expose the falsehoods. And this is precisely, dear friends, what I did. When I stood at the UN podium, I knew that I represent the most moral country in the world, the most moral military in the world. That's why I always fight with my head held high, always on the offensive, never apologetic. They may have called me ambassador, but I wasn't there to play nice. Truth was my weapon, and I wielded it unapologetically. Because in the face of lies, dear friends, there is no room for diplomatic niceties. When the Secretary General, I remind you some of the things I did, when the Secretary General claimed that the October 7th massacre, and I quote him, did not happen in a vacuum, I immediately called for his resignation. Shame on him. Yeah. And when Iran's former president, Raisi, took the UN stage, I didn't sit quietly. I protested against him in the General Assembly, holding high the image of Mahsa Amini, murdered by his regime. And what did the UN do? They detained me while giving a platform to a mass murderer. Good thing God had the last laugh with the ARC terrorists, as you remember. His helicopter, yeah. When the Security Council refused to condemn Hamas's massacre, I wore a yellow star right there in that chamber. Let them face the shame of their silence. And when Russia scheduled an anti-Israel propaganda show on Yom HaZikaron, our sacred Memorial Day, I showed them exactly what Israeli pride looks like. Right there in the Security Council, I lit a memorial candle for our fallen soldiers, and I walked out of their circus. Because, friends, I don't care who you are, the president of Iran or the Russian foreign minister. When you desecrate the memory of our heroes, you will face the truth. To conclude, friends, after 4 years of fighting lies at the UN, I chose to continue my battle in a different way. While I fought to defend Israel's name on the global stage, there are those who fight to defend Israeli lives on the ground. That's why I now lead Magen David Adom. Magen David Adom, MADA, as we call them in Hebrew, is not a regular emergency service. It is the national emergency service of Israel and the backbone of Israel's resilience. Just as the IDF guards our borders, MADA protects the lives within them. This is why I'm proud to stand with these brave men and women, these warriors in white. Brothers and sisters, for 4 years, I stood almost entirely alone at the UN. But I always remembered the words of the Rebbe, the Lubavitcher Rebbe. A little light dispels much darkness. Always remember it. And there was another fact that deeply empowered me every day, as I entered the General Assembly and I looked around the room. I remembered that the ambassadors of the Babylonian and Roman empires were nowhere to be found, nor were the delegations of the Moabites or the Amorites. You know what? The flag of Amalek was not wavering outside the UN. But do you know which flag is? Yeah, the Star of David, the flag of the Jewish people living in our eternal homeland. Because empires have crumbled and disappeared, but we continue, thank God, to grow stronger. So as long as we stand united, our enemies will falter and we will flourish. Israel and the Jewish people will not only survive, but thrive. God willing, we will obliterate Hamas. God willing, we will bring the hostages home. And above all, we will prevail. Am Yisrael Chai, thank you from the bottom of my heart. Thank you.
Another round of applause for the great Ambassador Gilad Erdan, the unflappable ambassador. How wonderful for Israel to have such great supporters as him and Gary and so many others. We have a couple other honorees this evening, but we also have so many supporters and friends of ZOA. And I think the evidence of ZOA's support in the pro-Israel, pro-Jewish space is evidenced by the caliber of decision makers and friends. And there are many across the globe. You've heard from two very eloquent ones tonight with Gary and the ambassador. But the reach of ZOA is around the globe. Please take a look at this incredible video of the power of ZOA.
The ZOA is the premier organization of advocacy for the rights of Jews to live securely in their indigenous homeland of Israel. Please welcome the president of the ZOA, Morton Klein. Morton, so glad to have you here.
Great to be with you.
The horrific terrorist attack on the Jewish people of Israel has shaken the world, but yet we see these crazy things happening, especially on the most elite college campuses, where people act like they're supporting Hamas, and it's Israel's fault. This has to be troubling for you as a Jewish leader.
It is shocking, and one of the reasons this is happening, I believe, is that the students, the kids, and really many people in America do not know the truth of the Arab-Islamic war against Israel, the Jews, and the West. They believe that Israel stole this land from a sovereign Arab country called Palestine. There's never been an Arab country called Palestine. It was a region. In fact, Palestine is a Roman name. So the issue is not about land. It's not about statehood. It's about destroying Israel.
Please give a big round of applause to someone who's an enormous, stalwart supporter of Israel, our friend. She is the chair of the House Republican Conference and the great Congresswoman Elise Stefanik.
And thank you to Mort Klein and the ZOA for your tireless work building a strong, effective, and respected Jewish voice around the world. I will ask you one more time. Does calling for the genocide of Jews violate Harvard's rules of bullying and harassment? Yes or no?
It depends on the context.
It does not depend on the context. The answer is yes, and this is why you should resign. These are unacceptable answers across the board.
I can't thank you enough for your bold, courageous leadership all year long. There are often times where on particular issues, there are people, groups, unable, unwilling to step up and sound off on what instinctively we know is the right path forward for policy. But you can always count on Moore Klein and ZOA and really all of the great team to courageously stand up, even if they are going to be the only ones or the first ones to put their necks out there on very important issues for the United States, for our national security, for the U.S.-Israel alliance, for the Middle East and the world.
My wife Kelly and I have made multiple trips to Israel. We love Israel. A strong U.S.-Israel relationship is good for the entire world. It's something that we must maintain. See, our two countries are bound together by our shared values and our deep religious convictions, of course. It's the Judeo-Christian foundation that built America. And this is one of the reasons why our nation and Israel have been able to enjoy such harmony and friendship over the years. It's critically important to us for many reasons, not just because of diplomacy and international relations and all the things that bind us to our other allies around the world, but because for so many of us, this is also a matter of faith.
Now I stand before you proudly to accept the Theodore Herzl Medallion. To everyone here at the Zionist Organization of America, thank you for bestowing me with this incredible honor. The United States and Israel are not just allies on a military basis, but economically and politically, we're allies morally, culturally, and spiritually, and we always will be. At least if I have anything to do about it, I will tell you. As president, I was proud to be the best friend. This has been stated by many, so I'm just repeating it, but the best friend the state of Israel has ever had in the White House. I think that's certain. Under my leadership, the alliance between the United States and Israel had never been stronger. The future of the Middle East had never been brighter. It never looked brighter.
How incredible are the Friends of ZOA and the power of this incredible organization. Thank you all for being a huge part of it. Also, I encourage all of you to do what you can to keep what they have done, to continue for generations to come. You're going to be meeting some young people later on in the program too, because it's all about inspiring and keeping the legacy alive and keeping the state of Israel first and foremost in our hearts and leading the globe in so many ways, as we've been talking about tonight. And that's why I encourage all of you. I would not miss this for the world. I love being here. It's always such an honor. But please take a look at the cards. You'll see them there on the table. There are contribution cards. Also, you can see up here the QR code. You can scan it. Please do whatever you can to help this incredible organization and the work of the great state of Israel that lives and breathes through the ZOA, everybody. I want to now bring up our next speaker, who will introduce a great war fighter for the state of Israel. Please, if you could give a big round of applause to ZOA National Board Vice Chairman, a stalwart supporter of the state of Israel, the great Long Island businessman, Michael Orbach.
Thank you so much, Rita. And good evening. And thank you all for being such good supporters and strong supporters of our organization, the ZOA. Tonight, we inaugurate the Dr. Irving I. Kessler Memorial Lecture. Dr. Kessler accomplished great work as a scientist, promoting public health, and he was also a proud Jew and a Zionist. And an interesting fact is that Dr. Kessler did medical research together with another researcher named Morton Klein. Fun fact, I am very pleased to introduce to you our first guest lecturer, who is doing crucial work both here and in Israel. He is a dear friend and an important partner of the ZOA and an inspiration to us all. Brigadier General Reserve Amir Avivi is the founder and the chairman of the IDSF. They're called the Habichonistim. He retired from the IDF after 30 years in 2017 with extensive national defense experience, including holding the positions as the director of the Office of the Chief of Staff, the Deputy Controller of Security Forces, and the commander of the School of Combat Engineering, among others. After his service, he founded the IDSF in 2020, together with other high-ranking officers, which has now grown into a grassroots movement of more than 35,000, including reserve officers from the IDF, the Shin Bet, the Mossad, civilians throughout Israeli society. The IDF mission is to promote a clear vision of Israel's national security needs and includes government briefings, research, education, and many public appearances. In the weeks and months that followed October 7th, when Israelis were recoiling in shock and the future looked unclear, General Amir made his rounds in the media and in the halls of the Knesset and provided a clear and steady hand and a way forward. In fact, his recent book, entitled Lo Nashuv Achor, or in English, No Retreat, says it all. In 2023, he was named among the top Jewish leaders by the Jerusalem Post. And those of us who were on the ZOA mission last year were fortunate to have him show us some important strategic areas around Israel and to hear his briefings. We look forward to his insight and important updates from the ground in Israel. General Amir Avivi.
But this is a war Israel must win decisively. This is really a crucial issue for Israel. It's existential. We cannot afford not destroying Hamas, and Israel is going to do that. It's going to continue and fight until we reach the point Hamas will be destroyed.
Always very, very happy to speak to such a great Zionistic organization, the most Zionistic organization in the US. And yes, I can say that the values of IDSF and ZOA are very much aligned.
National security is first and foremost about national values. Without Judaism, without Zionism, no tank or no airplane can help here. It's all about spirit. We need to stay united and focus only on one thing, on decisive victory, destroying Hamas, bringing all our hostages back, defeating Hezbollah, and bringing back security to the people of Israel. Thank you very much.
Ladies and gentlemen, Brigadier General Amir Avivi. We're going to take a picture with you first, General.
Good evening. It's a real honor to be here in the ZOA dinner. Thank you very much, Mort, for inviting me. I think that, we're 30 years after Oslo. Today, after the 7th of October, everybody in Israel understands how terrible Oslo and the disengagement were. And now it brought us to the 7th of October. But 30 years ago, there was only one organization here in the US standing strong and saying this is wrong, really standing against the whole other organization saying that Oslo is the right path. This was the ZOA. And I thank you, Morton, for this leadership, because it's not easy. It's not easy to stand against the stream, swim against the stream, and say the truth. And it took 30 years to really realize how wrong everything that happened in Israel in the last few decades was, which brought us at the end of the day to the 7th of October. As we are sitting here today in this wonderful dinner, our soldiers are fighting fiercely in Gaza, in Lebanon. Our Air Force is attacking in Iraq and in Yemen, in Syria. Our fighters are fighting really, really strong. You have on your tables a postcard. You know, our soldiers, they want only one thing. They want to know that the Jewish people are behind them, that you are supporting them, that you appreciate what the soldiers are doing for Israel. So I encourage you all to write a personal letter to a soldier to let them know how much you care. You know, 2.5 years ago, I got a phone call from some of my generals saying, Amir, we need to meet urgently. Something big is happening. And we had a meeting in my garden in Caesarea. We were like 15 generals. We sat, we spoke for 3 hours, and we realized that we are going to war. That war is imminent, it's going to come. And we wrote an extensive paper, 300 pages, explaining why war is coming, what is going to happen. We presented it to the government, to the defense establishment, tried to really wake up our leaders and army and say to them, you need to get ready. You have only 2 options. It's either going to be Six-Day War scenario or Yom Kippur scenario. It's either we attack first and we surprise them, or they will surprise us, and this will be a Yom Kippur scenario. We also put a picture on the cover of this assessment of a frog being boiled in a pot. And we said, this is Israel. Israel is facing a huge danger, 4 different existential threats. Iran and all its proxies, the Israeli-Arab conflict, the challenge within the land of Israel, anti-Semitism and delegitimation all over the world, and also loss of values. Many Jews who are distancing themselves from Israel, from Judaism, from Zionism. We said to the government, if you don't do something about it, Israel will face an existential threat. On the 7th of October, as devastating and terrible as this day was, something else happened. On the 7th of October, this frog jumped out of the pot. It's not there anymore. God gave us a huge slap in the face and said, Jews, wake up. You are facing danger, you need to fight. And from that moment onwards, we are fighting 2 big wars. One war is fought by our soldiers on the ground, in Gaza, in the north, in the east, fierce fighting. But there is also another war, and this is the war ZOA, we in IDSF are fighting. And this is the war to keep this frog out of the pot. It cannot go back. There are forces who are saying, let's do a ceasefire. Let's stop. Let's keep Hamas alive. Let's let Hezbollah stay in Lebanon. Let's let Iran continue its path towards nuclear weapons. And this is not an option. We need to eradicate our enemies. We cannot find them in 5 years fighting us again. We need to fight until we reach total victory. This is what we need to do. And I can tell you that the Israeli people are resilient, they are strong, they are willing to sacrifice, they are willing to fight, they want to win. And we are in a moment that is very, very defining. We in Israel, as President Trump was elected, we set the stage. We pretty much destroyed Hamas. We brought Hezbollah on its knees. We sent 100 airplanes to Iran, and in one attack wiped out all their air defense. They are defenseless now. But this is time for the U.S. to wake and join the fight. And it's my hope that when President Trump will go into office in January, that we'll fight together and bring down the Shia axis. This is our opportunity to really ensure the security of Israel for generations to come. And I see 3 steps. The first one is bringing down Iran and the Shia axis. Afterwards, we can have peace agreements, regional and global. Normalizing relations with Saudi Arabia is not just about one more Abraham Accords country. It's normalizing relations with the whole Sunni world, all the way from Indonesia, Malaysia, Pakistan, Oman. It's a huge alliance that will open new routes of commerce, that will go from India to UAE and on the ground to Saudi Arabia and Jordan to Israel. Israel is going to become the Singapore of the world. All the world trade will go through Israel. But we also need to finish something that started when President Trump started office and we didn't finish. We need to bring sovereignty to Judea and Samaria. And I will tell you this, the bigger the win will be, the more decisive the win will be, the greater the golden age of Israel and the Jewish people will be the day after. The day after we'll have peace agreements. The economy will bloom. There will be massive aliyah to Israel. There will also be baby boom. There is a great, great future awaiting the Jewish people. We need to do one thing. Stay united and fight until total victory. Thank you very much. Thank you.
A true warrior for the state of Israel. Also, everybody, you saw the Brigadier General holding up the postcard. Everybody, please fill out the postcard. They will go to the soldiers. Think about how important that is on the front lines. So please go and sign and send a message. The Brigadier General will make sure that they get there and that those who are fighting for Israel, fighting for the world's freedom, get it. Please make sure you take a look at the postcard. They're there on your packets and your desk. So please, everybody, send a personal message. Let them know that you are with them 100%. General Avivi, thank you. We love you. Thank you. And everybody, unfortunately, another great friend of ZOA, Ophira Kunis, my friend and also the General Consul of Israel to New York. He could not be here tonight, but he sent his greetings. Everybody, please take a look.
Dear friends, good evening. Erev Tov lekulchem. It is wonderful to join you all in spirit to salute the incredible work of ZOA and the superstars who keep it running. ZOA has been at the forefront of promoting Zionist ideals since even before the founding of the modern state of Israel. Please accept my sincerest apologies for not being here this evening in person. I am currently in Israel with my beloved daughter Roni as she begins her service in the IDF. With this, I now find myself a father to 2 lone soldiers, perhaps the first for an Israeli diplomat. I couldn't be more proud. Friends, since October 7th of last year, Israel has found itself under attack on 7 fronts. And our soldiers have risked everything to defend their homeland against genocidal invaders and against terrible odds. They, alongside our police officers, medics, and first responders, showed and continue to show tremendous bravery. From New York, we all salute them. But it is not just in Israel. The support from American Jews and allies has proven vital and inspirational, especially the member of ZOA, under the leadership of my friend Mort Klein. You contributed so much to our cause in word and deed. You lent your voice to the battlefield of public opinion, a battle still raging. You are there when we needed you most. On behalf of the State of Israel, I thank you. With your backing, we will continue to defend our people from Tehran to Yemen, from Rafah to Beirut, from Judea to Samaria. And as we rally together, I call on the international community to stand with us. What we saw last week in Amsterdam was a chilling preview of the failure to confront terrorism and hate. The West has a choice: support Israel and the Western civilization against Iran's radical Islam axis of evil. Remember that for the citizens of the free world, standing with Israel is simply self-preservation. History is full of lessons. All we need is to pay attention. Together, I have no doubt we will make the right choice and emerge stronger and more united than ever before. Thank you so much, and remember, Am Yisrael Chai and will always live.
Thank you, Mr. Consul General. I now want to call up ZOA Campus Managing Director Jonathan Ginsberg and his staff, along with the great Myron Zimmerman, to present the Myron Zimmerman Outstanding College Activism Award. Would you please come up? And also, Myron, please come up and join them too as well. Big round of applause, everybody, please. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
Hi, everyone. Thank you very much. First?
Yeah, we're going to take a picture.
Okay.
Where do you want me to stand? We'll take a picture first. We'll take a picture first. Okay. You should have shots there. I'll go on the other side.
This way. There we go. Right.
I don't want to block you. I don't want to block you. You sure? Okay.
Thank you. Perfect.
Thank you. He's going to speak.
Yeah,
okay.
we're gonna.
And then here. Okay. Thank you.
Hey, everyone. Thank you very much. One thing I have learned in this profession, we do pictures often first. It's very important. But my name is Jonathan Ginsberg. I'm the Managing Director of ZOA's Campus Department. It's an honor to be here alongside our amazing ZOA campus team, who are on the ground and at the forefront supporting Zionist students and defending the state of Israel in some of the most difficult environments in this country, American college campuses. Since October 7th, 2023, Jewish students have faced harassment, intimidation, and violence from pro-Hamas students as well as faculty. Calls for intifada have been heard frequently. Centers for Jewish life, such as Chabad and Hillel houses, have been targeted. Let it be clear, ZOA campus and the proud Zionist students we work with will never be deterred. Our class of over 40 ZOA campus fellows across the country at schools such as Cornell University, UC Berkeley, Boston University, and many more have led the way through community mobilization and educational programs about Israel's just and defensive war against Hamas and Hezbollah and Iran's wider terror network. Over the past semester, ZOA has proudly co-sponsored dozens of campus events, including having hosted IDF soldiers who bravely fought on October 7th and over the course of the past 12 months in protection of our one and only Jewish homeland. We're especially grateful to ZOA board member Myron Zimmerman for supporting our work at ZOA campus. And we are honored to present Shabbos Kestenbaum with the Myron Zimmerman Award for Outstanding Student Activism. As a graduate student at Harvard University, Shabbos not only faced, but actively confronted an environment steeped in anti-Semitism with unyielding courage and integrity. Through op-eds, congressional testimony, and ultimately as a lead plaintiff in a lawsuit against Harvard, Shabbos has exposed the alarming rise of anti-Semitism within academia, shedding light on the struggles of that Jewish students endure, and exemplifying what it means to be a proud Zionist. Thank you, Shabbos. We're honored and inspired by your activism.
On what grounds are you suing?
I mean, how much time you got? Breach of contract, diminished educational opportunities, flagrant violations of Title VI of the Civil Rights Act.
I want to thank you for having me this afternoon. By inviting me, you've actually already done more than Harvard University has ever done for its Jews, which is listening to us. My name is Shabbos Kestenbaum. I'm a second-year master's student at Harvard. I'm a proud Jew. I'm a proud American. And yes, I'm a proud progressive. The time for Congress to act is now. Am Yisrael Chai.
Wow. Wow. Wow, thank you so much. I really appreciate it. I was not expecting a video. That's a first for me. I definitely need a haircut. You know, it's funny, when I was walking in and the protesters started calling me a baby killer, I thought to myself, wow, I didn't know it was a Harvard class reunion today. In fact, when Ambassador Ardone was being heckled, I thought to myself, oh my God, Claudine Gay, where did you come from? So look, I first very sincerely, very honestly want to thank Mr. Zimmerman, Mort Klein, Alan, Susan, the entire ZOA. I addressed the Conference of Major Presidents of Jewish Organizations a couple of months ago. Within an hour, Mort Klein called me and offered me a job on the spot. That's what leadership is, and there have unfortunately been a very, very select few Jewish nonprofits who've amplified the voices of Jewish students, and ZOA certainly stands alone. So thank you, thank you, thank you. To show you how not used I am to being honored with anything, when I started writing my speech, I started by saying it's an honor just to be nominated, and then I realized it doesn't really make sense. So when Mort asked me if I would accept this honor, I originally said no. I haven't really done anything noteworthy or mentionable, but then he said, well, David Friedman will be there, so I said, Mort, what time do you need me? So it really is a pleasure to be in such a esteemed presence. Look, I could tell you all about and spend hours and hours about the physical assault against a Jewish student at Harvard Business School. I could tell you about the Jewish undergrad at Harvard who was spat on for wearing a kippah. I could tell you about the Israeli student at Harvard who was told by her professor to leave the classroom because her nationality made other students uncomfortable. I could tell you about the Harvard employee who vandalized all of the hostage posters, writing on Kfir Bibas that his head is still on, where is the evidence? Writing on Noah Argamani that Jews are best friends with Jeffrey Epstein. He then challenged me to debate him in a secluded underpass as to whether Jews were behind 9/11, and then threatened me with a machete. I had private armed security outside my house. I had a guy with a gun follow me to Chabad to make sure I was okay. I could tell you about all of that, but I refuse to allow the Jewish narrative to be defined by our ideological adversaries. So instead, I want to do something else, and I want to tell you a story. You haven't even heard the story yet. By the way, you don't have to clap, you just have to laugh. I think I'm hilarious, but as my mom on table 15 will tell me, I'm not, so please laugh. It is no secret, I spoke at the Republican convention. I offered to speak at the Democratic convention. I'm still waiting for them to call me back. The morning of my speech, a limo picks me up from my hotel, which is a pretty cool sentence. If I date your granddaughters, I'm going to tell her that story. And they take me to the convention arena. At the convention arena, the stage manager of the RNC was a man by the name of Eric. And Eric tells me, Mr. Kestenbaum, this is the podium you're going to use. That's the teleprompter to look at. This is what your hair and makeup is going to look like. As you can tell by how I'm dressed, I didn't care how I was going to look. Off the record, what was on the teleprompter and the speech I gave were two very different things. And don't tell that to Trump. And I did not care about the teleprompter. After 2 hours of doing the walkthrough, he keeps saying, Mr. Kestenbaum, do you have any questions? And again, I really didn't. As I opened the door of the limo, I turned around and I say, Eric, you know, I actually have one question. Can you promise me when I give that speech later tonight, in front of 30,000 people in the arena, in front of the former President of the United States, in front of tens of millions of Americans who are watching, can you promise me that the camera that is televising my speech will be able to see that I'm wearing a kippah? That is the only question I asked, because I have two friends, well, I have more than two friends, although not by much. I have two friends at Harvard University who, in response to October 7th, have taken off their kippah. I can show you a list in my phone of hundreds of Jewish students across North America who, in response to October 7th, have taken off their kippah, have tucked in their Star of David necklace, have ceased their involvement with Jewish life on campus. And I thought, regardless of the substance of my speech, irrespective of the words coming out of my mouth, the only thing I wanted to show in that speech was that in the 21st century, young American Jews can and should and must be wearing their Jewish pride as loudly and publicly and confidently as ever before. And in fact, that night, I was in the speaker's lounge. I was eating chips with J.D. Vance, and Tim Walz is right, they are a little weird. And a woman, it's okay, don't tell Trump I said that either. A woman comes to get me and says, Mr. Kestenbaum, your speech is up, please follow me. We walk down a long corridor, we're flanked by Secret Service on either side. We get to a small room backstage. The small room backstage is 4 people. It's myself, it's Lee Zeldin, who was actually last year's Zimmerman recipient, and it was Omer Nutra's parents. Omer Nutra, of course, is the American Jewish civilian still being held hostage by Hamas in Gaza. He just observed his 23rd birthday 2 weeks ago. This is the 2nd birthday he has spent as a hostage in Gaza. And I go to his parents, Ronen and Orna, and I tell them, there is nothing I can say, there is certainly nothing I can do. I just want to add that the courage, the bravery, and the inspiration you have given me is something I will never be able to repay for the rest of my life. And with that, I walked out of the backstage room. I cried a little, and remember the Republicans had me in makeup, so the mascara was all right. Someone? Tough crowd. And I have been privileged and blessed and fortunate the last 13 months to have met some pretty cool people. I helped accompany President Trump to the Ohel of the Rebbe. I've been able to give some pretty big speeches. I've been able to go to some pretty cool places. I can promise you, none of them hold a candle to the 2-minute conversation I had with Omer Nutra's parents. Because take it from me, young American Jews have woken up after October 7th, and we are simply not going back to sleep. After October 7th, I bought a one-way ticket to Israel. I spent 3 weeks digging graves for soldiers who were killed in Gaza. I spent 3 weeks delivering supplies to army bases. I spent 3 weeks playing guitar and singing songs for injured civilians in the hospitals. And they said, please, we've suffered enough because I don't have a very good voice. And I did that because, yes, I wanted to get the hell out of Harvard's campus. But it's also because never in my life have I felt more connected to the land of Israel, more attached to the people of Israel, and more proud and confident of my Jewish identity and to fight for that identity as publicly and confidently as ever before. And in fact, when I was checking in at Boston's Logan Airport for that one-way trip, which, again, it was really round trip, but American Airlines canceled the return ticket because there was a war. When I was checking in with the 15 duffel bags full of bulletproof whatever, a young girl comes up to me. She could not have been older than 15. I don't know her name. I had never seen her before, and I haven't seen her since. And she has an Israeli flag in one hand and an American flag in the other hand. She's blasting Hebrew music. She comes up to me and says, here, take this. She hands me an envelope. I realize what's inside this envelope. It's dozens and dozens of $100 bills. I tell this young girl, I said, there's no way I can accept this. I kid you not, this young girl, she could not have been older than 15, hugs me, and with tears streaming down from her face, crying, take this envelope, please give it to the first person you see in Israel. A month ago, I was giving a talk in Miami, and because it was Miami, the average age of the audience was deceased. And a woman gets up, you know I'm right, you know I'm not wrong. And a woman gets up in the middle of my speech and she says, I want to add something. And I'm someone who gets death threats from the far left and the far right. See, I'm very bipartisan. Both sides want to kill me. I've been heckled. I've been criticized nonstop. I've had rocks thrown through campus windows when I speak. It's never a good sign when someone says, I just want to add something in the middle of your speech. She gets up. I kid you not. She says, my name is Regina. I am 102 years old. I am a survivor. See, God's waiting room. I am a survivor of Maidanic, I am a survivor of Bergen-Belsen. I am a survivor, and I fought in the Warsaw Ghetto Uprising. We will get through this because we've gotten through it before. And she sits back down. I am here to tell you, ladies and gentlemen, on behalf of all of the young people, those young American Jews who, in response to being told to go back to Poland, in response to having their mezuzahs being torn down dorm windows, in response to having swastikas being drawn in their classrooms, I am telling you we will get through it because we've gotten through it before. We are standing on the shoulders of giants. I'll conclude by saying one last thing. My brother is in Israel. He just had a kid. The first day of that nephew's existence was spent in a bomb shelter because he was born the day Iran launched 200 ballistic missiles into Israel. The child, my nephew, had a Brit Milah circumcision a few weeks ago on October 7th. The next day, that father's child, my brother, puts on a uniform and reports to reserve duty in Lebanon. And I text my brother and I tell him, what's going through your mind? What are you thinking? And he says, what an unbelievable privilege. For the first time in 3,000 years, I have a country to defend. I have a uniform to put on, and I have a people, I have a family, I have a land worth defending. It is that brother, it is that 15-year-old girl, it is that Regina in Miami, it is leaders and visionaries like Mort Klein, who I can guarantee you we are standing on the shoulders of giants. And let me conclude by saying this. We young people did not want this fight. We did not ask for this fight. We did not make this problem, but we will be the ones to solve this problem. And it is no secret, yes, I very much hope to please God have a position in the Trump White House, but regardless, I will, that's why when Mort said David Freeman would be here, I canceled my plans. But regardless of any position or any capacity, I promise you, I and the thousands of Jewish students on college campuses who I'm accepting that award on behalf of will fight for the Jewish future, will fight for the Jewish homeland, will fight for Jewish values. After October 7th, Israel began attacking our enemies by the air, by the sea, and by the land. I cannot affect that outcome. Trust me, the IDF doesn't want me. What I can do is fight in the battlefront of ideas. I can fight in the court of law, I can fight in the court of public opinion, I can fight in the halls of Congress, I can fight in the halls of power, I can fight in media, I can fight in social media. And that is a fight that each and every one of you, if you care about the vitality, the strength, and the future of the Jewish people, join me, join those brave Jewish students on college campuses, join the ZOA, join us in that fight. And I can assure you, regardless of a position, regardless of a capacity, we will be fighting, and we hope you join us. And if you do that, you will be a living, breathing testament. You will be a living, breathing testament to the adage, to the ideal, to the promise that Am Yisrael Chai, that the Jewish people live and the Jewish people will always live. May God bless the United States. May He bless the land of Israel. May He bless, protect, and return the hostages in Gaza now, 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 now. Thank you very much.
Wow, I would say there's hope for the youth on campuses. My goodness. Wow. Shabbos, thank you so much. And by the way, you probably heard this recently, but President Trump said he would even consider cutting off funds for universities that don't condemn anti-Semitism. Our next speaker really doesn't need an introduction. He is beloved. He's one of the top legal scholars in the world. I would say of all the media appearances, he definitely loves being with me on Newsmax and also on Katz and Cosby on WABC Radio. Do we have WABC Radio fans out there? All right. And do we have Newsmax fans out there? Okay, good. I'm glad I cover both. I'm glad I'm on both. But our next speaker has written more than 50 books. He is always the go-to guy on the fight to support Israel and all the great constitutional issues out there. He has written numerous best-selling books, but I want to also give him a shout-out before he comes up, because I think he has done something more important than any of the other books he's probably ever done. Our dear friend Alan Dershowitz is now putting out 1 million books. They are going to 1,000 universities around the globe. And the book is The 10 Big Anti-Israel Lies, How to Refute Them with Truth. And he's going to make sure every campus around the world has this book and understands the truth, so we can make a huge difference. Please support Professor Alan Dershowitz and all of his incredible endeavors. He is on the front lines fighting to make sure the next generation knows never, ever again. Please welcome the great Professor Alan Dershowitz and also philanthropist Stephen Sass.
Thank you so much.
I love you, Professor. I love you. Oh, wait, here. Let's take a picture here. Oh, wait, Tom.
Before I have the great honor of introducing the greatest ambassador in the history of the United States to Israel, David Friedman, I want to say one word about Shabbos. That's one hell of a good Shabbos. I have to tell you, he represents the future. There are no people more courageous than young students who are willing to buck their professors, willing to be downgraded, willing not to be evaluated and recommended in order to stand up for truth. So Shabbos, keep doing it, and all the young people, keep fighting for Israel on your campuses. I know how much courage it takes, but you have the courage, and I congratulate you. Now, I was hoping to be able to introduce Ambassador Friedman as the Nobel Prize Peace recipient. I nominated him. I'm an official nominator of the Peace Prize. I nominated him for the Peace Prize, and he so deserves it for what he did as ambassador to help bring about so many accomplishments for peace, the recognition of Jerusalem as the eternal capital of Israel, the Abraham Accords. Can you imagine anything that would qualify somebody more for a Peace Prize? Certainly more than Yasser Arafat getting a Peace Prize, which he did, and David should have gotten the Peace Prize. The Golan Heights, recognizing, as I told President Trump when he asked me about it, would anybody ever return a battleship captured during a war to allow the enemies to continue to fire upon your country? He said, no, of course not. I said, Mr. President, the Golan Heights is a battleship. That's all it is. It cannot ever, ever be returned to enemies who are using it to make war on Israel. And David Friedman brought that about. He is one of Israel's greatest advocates. He is also, as a person, just a wonderful mensch. His whole family represents menschlichkeit. They are such great, great human beings. And here I'm going to make a statement that might be controversial, but I will not rest until David Friedman is appointed by President Trump to be an important part of this administration. In whatever capacity he will serve, he will help bring about peace, he will help strengthen the people of Israel and help strengthen the land of Israel. Look, I wrote this book on lies, but David has for years, Mr. Ambassador, been our strongest exposure of the lies of the other side. And he continues to do so, and he continues to understand what the Psalm of David meant when it said, Hashem oz li amo yitain. Hashem will give the Jewish people strength and us. Hashem yivarech et amo b'shalom. The Jewish people will then get peace. He has learned the lesson of history that morality is essential. Israel is the most moral army in the world. Morality is essential, but we had morality during the Shoah. We had morality on October 7th. We had morality and will continue to have morality. But for the Jewish people and for the state of Israel to survive, it must have oaths. It must have strength. It must be the most powerful military, not only in the Middle East, but in muddy parts of the world. It can only survive, it can only make peace when the world recognizes that Israel cannot be defeated militarily. Why is October 7th so important? Because October 7th exposed Israel's vulnerability to terrorism, and it brought out the bullies of the world, the people who on October 8th at Harvard, 33 student groups condemned Israel for October 7th. When Israel is down, it increases anti-Semitism. And when Israel is strong, and when Israel is powerful, it can resist anti-Semitism. So, with the hope that Hashem will give us both Oz and Shalom, I just wish Israel Chazak ve'ematz, and I introduce with great, great pleasure my friend and the greatest ambassador in the history of American relations with Israel, David Friedman.
This land and the biblical covenants and wisdom emerging from within it are what makes us Jewish. Israel isn't just a place. It is a country with sovereignty over its land and responsibility for its inhabitants. Today, that sovereignty has been called into question by the nations of the world and even by some within Israel. But Israel cannot be Jewish without sovereignty over the places that make it Jewish. We hope that one day, with God's help and with your help, Israel will have complete sovereignty over all of its biblical homeland in a manner that brings peace, prosperity, and essential human dignity to all of Israel's inhabitants.
Today, we opened the United States Embassy in Jerusalem, Israel.
And it's my privilege and honor to present ZOA's Stephen Sass Award for Outstanding Diplomacy to the Honorable Ambassador David Friedman.
Thank you all. Thank you, Alan, my dear friend Alan Dershowitz. Let's see if Shabbos, once I get a job, I'll try to get you a job, okay, if you don't mind. Let me handle my own situation first, if it's okay. Mort, thank you so much. Rita, it's always great to, always love doing your show also, your radio show. It's a great show. Gary, who's Gary? The Schottensteins, great people. My friend Amir, Avivi, it's great to see you, all the honorees. It's, and thank all of you. You know, there's really only one ZOA. It's been around forever. It never wavers. Unapologetic, unequivocal advocacy and education for the state of Israel, for the people of Israel, and for the land of Israel. And it's a great testament to all of you that you came here, though you fought the crowds. I had to go back in twice. I had to go speak somewhere else. They're yelling at me, calling me names. Who cares, right? Who cares? We know that what we're doing is right. We're on the side of God. We're on the side of righteousness, and we'll continue to keep doing what we're doing. October 7th is still with us. Make no mistake about it, the Israeli army has performed magnificently, the intelligence services. We're going to win the war, there's no question. We're almost at the point of winning the war. But it's still with us. I mean, the trauma, make no mistake about the trauma of October 7th. I mean, how many Israelis are not sleeping at night? How many children don't have parents? How many parents have lost children? How many soldiers have been wounded and will never be the same again? We'll win the war, but I don't know how long it'll take to overcome the trauma. Maybe never, maybe never. But we did get something of value out of this experience. Not worth it, not worth this experience, but we got something of value. And what we really got was clarity. We have clarity today like never before. We know who our friends are. We know who our enemies are. We know what works. We know what doesn't work. We know the challenges that we have to face. We have the confidence and I believe the skill to confront them. So we know we have a clear vision like we've never had before. And if there's one thing that's more clear than anything else, abundantly clear, perhaps nothing is more clear. There can never, ever, ever be a Palestinian state, period. Now, I just want to give you, you probably all know this, but I'm just going to give you my answer, people, because I get this a lot, and I get these arguments about, well, you have to have, the Palestinians are entitled to self-determination, they're entitled to their own territory. I mean, you can walk out onto the street and 20 people will argue with you about this, but this is the simple answer. The simple answer is that we tried this already, right? In 2005, the Jewish people left Gaza. There hasn't been a Jew living in Gaza. There hasn't been a soldier with a boot on the ground in Gaza since after October 7th. The Palestinians were given the entirety of the Gaza Strip. That's the western-facing Mediterranean, beautiful sunsets. Could have built, the most beautiful hotels and apartments, just like we have in Tel Aviv. What did the Palestinians do with this body of land that they were given? Well, first they had an election. And who did they vote for? Who did they elect? They elected Hamas. And then they got lots of money. They got money from the UN. They got money, unfortunately, from the United States, billions of dollars from America. Everyone other than the Trump administration gave them tons of money. They got money from the Gulf, got money from the EU. What did they do with all the money? Did they build a school? Did they build a hospital? Did they build a hotel? They took all their money and they built terror tunnels and weapons of mass destruction. So if you didn't agree with the idea of a Palestinian state before October 7th, and I've never thought it was a good idea, but whatever you might have thought before October 7th, we have definitive proof on October 7th that there can never be a Palestinian state. Left to their own devices, left with autonomy and control over the territory, the Palestinians will take whatever they have and use it to murder, slaughter, kidnap, rape, and torture the Jewish people. We can never, ever let that happen again. So now what do? So we know what we can't have, right? So what do? So do we just throw up our hands and say, oh, this is just too complicated, we can't do anything about it? Well, we can't do that. Look, vacuums in the Middle East get filled by the worst actors. There was a vacuum in southern Lebanon, it was filled by Hezbollah. There was a vacuum in Gaza filled by Hamas. There was a vacuum in the Sinai, it was filled by ISIS. You can't have vacuums. We need to fill every vacuum. And so what that does is it puts us in the business, if you will, of collecting resumes from all the countries. Someone's got to be sovereign over Judea and Samaria. Someone's got to. You can't have a vacuum. So let's collect resumes among all the various players. Who could be the sovereign over Judea and Samaria? Well, it's not going to be Lebanon. It's not going to be Syria. It's not going to be Jordan. It's not going to be Egypt. It's not going to be any of these terror groups. Is there any country in the region that has a track record of actually dealing humanely with a Muslim minority population? Anybody any particular place you can think of? Because 20% of Israel is Arab. And, they've got 5 or 6 really first-rate academic institutions. Better than Harvard, better than Columbia. I went to Columbia, way better than Columbia. And more than 20% of the students that attend these universities are Arabs. Christian Arabs have the highest standard of living in Israel, higher standard than Jews. You go to a hospital, you get into you break your arm, playing ball, and you go to a hospital at Shari Tzedek or Hadassah Hospital. There's a good chance your arm is going to be set by a Palestinian doctor. Lawyers, commerce. A dear friend of mine, Arab, Muslim, Israeli citizen, former chairman of Bank Leumi, the largest bank in Israel. So Israel knows how to do this, given the opportunity. And there is no other country. So, if assuming that Judea and Samaria needs a sovereign, and I think every land needs a sovereign. There's really no other choice. And that's really why I wrote this book that some of you have called One Jewish State. And you'll have to read the book. I'm not going to tell you what's in the book. But I'm going to tell you what's in the title, because the title itself is worth just explaining. Because there's 3 words there, One Jewish State, that actually I gave some thought about the meaning of each word. Now, I'm talking about the word one. What does one mean? Well, throughout the entire world, right, there's one Jewish state. There's 30, 40, 50 Muslim states. There's Christian states. I mean, in America, we don't have a national religion, but most of the world has a national religion. There are Christian states, Hindu, Buddhist states, and many, many, many Muslim states. All we're asking for is just one Jewish state on land not bigger than New Jersey, for a people, for the Jewish people, who have a better claim to living in the land of Israel than any people have anywhere else in the world. Just one little place, one Jewish state. And I would say one more thing about the word one. It's one Jewish state and never more than one Jewish state. Israel cannot be divided. We've been divided in the past. We all know the story of King Solomon. He was a great king, a very wise man, built the temple. Towards the end of his life, he kind of made some mistakes. You know, he had so many wives. He splintered his influence in different places. And the consequence was that he lost his kingdom. He lost 10 tribes out of 12. 5/6 of the Jewish people were separated off, and then 200 years later were taken and destroyed, never heard from again. 5/6 of the Jewish people, because of our lack of unity. The consequences of not being unified are disastrous for the Jewish people. So that's one. We have to there's one Jewish state, not more than one Jewish state, and to say the least, we're entitled to one small piece of land on our biblical heartland. Jewish, well, it's got to be Jewish, right? We're not talking about having a place in Las Vegas or in Texas. I mean, people in Texas love Jews, but we don't want to be. We don't want to have a state in Texas, right? We want to be in our biblical homeland. Well, what makes this land Jewish? Like, there's only one. I mean, yes, there are more Jews that live there, that live in Israel, than any place else in the world. But what makes this Jewish state Jewish? It's Jerusalem, it's Hebron, it's Beit El, it's Shiloh, it's Beit Lechem. It's all the places of the Bible. I mean, I made a movie a year and a half ago called Route 60, The Biblical Highway, which I made with Mike Pompeo, and he talked about the Christian significance, and I spoke about the Jewish significance. But this route, Route 60, Kvish Shishim, that starts in Nazareth and ends in Beersheba, you go down this road, you literally immerse yourself in the land of the Bible. This is where, whether you're Jewish or Christian, whether you want to talk about Jesus making his pilgrimage to the temple, you want to talk about all the Old Testament stories of Isaac and at Beit El, or Hebron, or I mean, it's who we are. It's our DNA. It's what makes us a Jewish nation across continents, across ages. It's our DNA. It's very hard to be a Jewish state without sovereignty over the places that make you Jewish. It's just very hard to do. And we have to make sure, this is our opportunity to make sure that never happens. And the reason is for the last word, state. Okay, Israel is a state, right? That means it is a sovereign nation. It has sovereignty over its land. But we've got this, you know, as Amir points out, if you ask a fourth grade class in Israel, draw a map of your country. Just draw a map. You'll be shocked to find that there's different maps. Some will draw the Green Line, okay, which is a mistake. Some will draw the Jordan River, which is the right answer, but it's not really actualized yet. Some, you know, the more sophisticated ones might choose the Alon line, or where they think the settlement blocks are going to be. But Israel's, you know, it's 76 years old, and it's time to make the tough decisions that it's been putting off for so long. And so, as I tell all my friends in Israel, you know, the world will respect Israel's decision if Israel respects itself. And we have to encourage, like, this is not our decision to make. But I can tell you, because I have this conversation endlessly with my friends in Israel, and their question is always, can we do it? What are the consequences? Can we get away with it? Will we be boycotted? Will we be, you know, what will America do? And, you know, what I tell them is, you know, they always ask me, well, what will President Trump do if we do? I said, well, you know what? If I ask President Trump tomorrow about, you know, one Jewish state and about extending Israel's sovereignty to all of Judea and Samaria, the question he asked me is, well, what does Israel want to do? Like, before I make, what do they want to do? Let them come to me, let them make a decision, let them come to me, explain why it's good for Israel, why it's good for the region, why it's good for the Palestinians, why it's good for, stability, why it's good for the economy, why it's good, make the case, and I'm happy to listen to it. But, what I tell all my friends in Israel, don't ask anybody to be more of a Zionist than you are. Okay, you have to be, you're the Zionist, we're the Zionist. We have to, Israel has to go first. And we have to tell our friends in Israel, look, don't be timid, don't be shy, don't think that the world is out to boy. It doesn't matter so much what the world thinks. You will be, if you go and say, this is our land, I think a lot of people will respect you. I've had many conversations with leaders of nations in the Gulf, and they tell me, look, there's a lot of pressure in our street for a Palestinian state. And I said, look, I'm never gonna put my fingerprints on anything like that. And I said to them, look, what would you do? I mean, you're religious people. You believe deeply in your faith. What should Israel do? It should give away Hebron, which was purchased. I mean, all the great places, by the way, were purchased in the Bible. They weren't conquered. We didn't conquer Hebron, we bought Hebron. We didn't conquer Jerusalem, we bought Jerusalem. Right? We didn't conquer Shem, we bought Shem. I mean, the Bible couldn't be clearer that these are lands that the Jewish people purchased. They didn't even conquer them. And I said, what would you think of a people that gave away to Palestinians their holiest sites, their most historically significant sites? And by the way, I say this to my friends in Israel, you know what the video is going to look like. I mean, you give away Shiloh, you know what's going to happen. They're coming in with pitchforks and bulldozers and fires, and they're going to destroy every last piece of evidence that Jews ever lived in Shiloh, which was the Jerusalem of Israel before there was Jerusalem. So we have to really focus on the fact that we're kind of, getting to the point where this is not aging well, right? It's, you could put off this decision for a long time, and Israel successfully did. I don't blame Israel because, look, Israel's never had a day of peace in its life. Not one day of peace in its entire national existence. So I'm not here to blame Israel, but we have to help Israel make the decisions that will last for the next 100 years. And we have to at least support Israel in saying, look, these places are the places that, frankly, were motivated the founders of America. America is we have this transformational document called the Declaration of Independence. What was transformational about it? That human rights doesn't come from the sovereign. Human rights comes from God. We're all endowed by our Creator with certain rights, life, liberty, the pursuit of happiness. How did our founders know about this? How did they know which particular rights were relevant? There are a lot of rights out there, right? You can envision all kinds of rights. Why life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness? Because they read the Bible. It's all there in the Bible. And where did the words of the Bible come from? Well, you all know, Ki mitzion tetzei Torah, dvar Hashem Yerushalayim. The word of God comes from Jerusalem. And so, look, we have to be strong on this issue. I mean, completely strong. There's not, and I'll tell you, it's difficult to be in government and to be so completely inflexible that you would turn down, I would turn down, and maybe that's why I'm standing here and I'm not in Mar-a-Lago right now. But I would turn down anything that requires Israel to hand over its biblical heartland to the Palestinian people. Anything. So look, I'll finish off just by saying this. Look, there's a lot of people who look at the Middle East in different ways, lots of different vectors. You can say, I care the most about bringing economic prosperity. I care the most about national security. I care the most about regional stability. I care about human rights. I care about faith. There's all kinds of different ways people process their news and make their decisions. I will tell you today, no matter how you digest your news, no matter how you process your thoughts about the land of Israel, okay? Whether you care about human rights, whether you care about human dignity, whether you care about faith, whatever it is, the only solution for the future of the state of Israel is complete sovereignty over its biblical heartland and nothing else. And the case that we need to make is that this is a win-win, this is not just what's best for Israel, not just what's best for Jews. It's best for the inhabitants, the Palestinians, the Christians, the Muslims, the Druze. It's best for every single inhabitant from the river to the sea. And this is a case that, you know, I hope we can start making. So, you know, the book's all the proceeds are donated to charity. So I'm not asking you to get my book because I want to make any money. Read the book, or borrow the book. I don't care if you buy it. Borrow the book if you have to. But please read the book. And I think what you'll conclude from it is that none of us should really be surprised that God's vision for this land, God's covenant that he made to Abraham, to Isaac, and to Jacob, God's prophecies that he gave to Jeremiah and Isaiah and Ezekiel, God's word, fulfilling God's word, also brings the best outcome for every single inhabitant of the one Jewish state. Thank you very much.
Ambassador Friedman, thank you very, very much. Thank you. What a blessing to have you here. What a fine representative. Thank you for all you did to move the U.S. Embassy and also the stunning Abraham Accords, one of the great warriors for Israel. The Ambassador David Friedman, thank you. What a blessing. Everybody, every 5 years, Jews around the globe come together to form the World Zionist Congress. The WZC is the international parliament of the Jewish people, and it makes spending decisions regarding how key institutions allocate some $1 billion annually to support Israel and world Jewry. Once again, the ZOA is leading a growing coalition of 25 of the strongest pro-Israel organizations that support ZOA's clear and unapologetic mission, and also its goals and policies that strengthen Jewish identity, promote security, foster growth for generations to come, so many of the issues that the ambassador just spoke about. All of you, you have cards on your table. Please take a look at that. Also, you see the QR code on the screen. Please do what you can to protect the state of Israel through this incredible organization that does so much. You will also see the logos of ZOA's fantastic partners that were up there. And you can go to ZOAcoalition.org, ZOAcoalition.org. You will find directions how to register for the ZOA Plus slate through the American Zionist Movement. There's a $5 fee that goes to AZM. Liz Burney, where is Liz Burney? There she is over there. Liz, would you stand up, please? Liz Burney over there also has a great group of volunteers that are all over the place, some in the back of the room. Liz is the amazing National Director of Research and Special Projects. She's right over there. And also, so many of the volunteers that you see throughout the room, and Liz will continue to be in that area, but also they are circulating. Liz, wave your hand again. I want you because she's one of the most important people in the room right there, Liz Burney. Please do whatever you can to support Liz, Mort, Alan, and everybody on this incredible team. Please register now. The actual voting starts in March. The ZOA, by the way, is leading the way at the World Zionist Congress for the past 127 years. That's amazing. Dating back to the very first Congress in 1897. Here is a short video from Yaakov Haguel. He is the chairman of the World Zionist Organization, also a representative of the World Likud, who is our proud partner for this vital mission. Everybody, if you could sit down, I'm going to ask all of you, do me a favor. Shh. We just have a few minutes left of the program, but if you could please give your full attention right now to watch this short video, and please do what you can to register to support ZOA through the World Zionist Organization, and also do what you can. Look at the cards, and please do what you can. Here's a short video.
חבריי חברי ה-ZOA, אוהבי עם ישראל וארץ ישראל. שלום לכם, כאן, מירושלים, בירתנו הנצחית. אני גאה ונרגש לברך אתכם בערב המיוחד הזה, כיושב ראש ההסתדרות הציונית העולמית וכשותף של ה-ZOA במוסדות הלאומיים. אני רוצה לברך ולהוקיר אתכם על ההישגים האדירים לאורך השנים. יחד פעלנו ללא לאות בכדי לחזק את הזהות היהודית והציונית, לקדם את מעמדה של ירושלים כבירת הנצח של העם היהודי ומדינת ישראל, להיאבק ללא פשרות באנטישמיות ולעמוד יחד כקיר של ברזל בתקופות ובאתגרים שלפנינו. המאבקים שלכם, שלנו, נושאים פירות. בזכות השותפות הארוכה בינינו, אנחנו ממשיכים לבסס את ההתיישבות ביהודה ושומרון ובכל חלקי ארץ ישראל, תוך קידום החלת הריבונות הישראלית בבקעת הירדן תחילה. אני רוצה לברך במיוחד את נשיא ה-ZOA, חברי הטוב, מורטון קליין, על מנהיגותו רבת השנים בארגון. תודה רבה, מורטון. בחודש מרץ בארצות הברית יחלו הבחירות לקונגרס הציוני העולמי. אני קורא לכם, למשפחות שלכם, לחברים שלכם, לעשות את הצעד הפשוט אך המשמעותי, להיכנס, להירשם ולהצביע לקואליציית ה-ZOA, בכדי שנוכל להמשיך ולעבוד למען ערכינו המשותפים. עכשיו יותר מתמיד. נעמוד איתן על העקרונות עד לניצחון המוחלט, השבת הביטחון והעוצמה שלנו והחזרת כל החטופים הביתה ביד רמה. תודה רבה לכם ZOA על ערב הגלה החשוב הזה ועל הפעילות שלכם למען עם ישראל וארץ ישראל. לשנה הזאת, בעזרת השם, בירושלים.
And our thank you to the great World Zionist Organization and, of course, Yaakov Hagawel. Everybody, as you just heard, the WZC elections are important, so make sure that you find Liz and the other volunteers and put in your part to show support, especially for ZOA, with the World Zionist Organization and the World Zionist Congress. It is so deeply, deeply important. Before I leave, I want to give another shout out, if I could, to the great Ambassador Gilad Erdan. We love you. Thank you for what you do. Thank you for what you do for Israel. You're such an incredible fighter. Where is Gary? I see his wonderful wife. Where is Gary? Where is Gary? Gary, thank you for all you do for Israel and ZOA. What an amazing human being you are, and your beautiful wife. Thank you. It's a blessing to have you here. Where is General Amir Avivi? Did he leave? Is he here? Where is he? He's somewhere around here. Where is there he is, General Avivi. Thank you. I hope we get so many postcards for the soldiers. Thank you. It's such an honor to have you here, and thank you for literally being on the front lines for freedom, not just for Israel, but for the globe. Thank you. We love you, General. Thank you. And, of course, the great Ambassador David Friedman, my friend, thank you for your incredible support of Israel and the world, and what you have done is historic. We love you. We're so honored to have you here tonight. Thank you. What a blessing. Before I turn it over to the last speaker, well, it will be the introducer of the last speaker, and you definitely want to stay, because the best is yet to come. I just want to say, I love being here with all of you. It is a gift for me to be able to be here tonight. I think of my father, I think of my grandparents, and I think of Israel every single day. Just know you have a friend in the media, you have many friends, but I will support Israel to my last breath, and I am so thankful to be here. My father saw the fight, and I will continue the fight with the microphone. If I can pick up a gun, I'll join Amir Avivi, but I'm honored to be here tonight. It's really a blessing. Thank you all. Thank you so much. Thank you. Our next introducer is going to introduce one of the finest human beings that we all know. Of course, he is the head of ZOA, but he is literally on the front lines. You saw him in the video before. He is one of the most eloquent, dynamic, and passionate human beings who loves Israel. He is, of course, the head of ZOA. And I can think of no better person than to introduce him than a fellow journalist. She and her husband, Jonathan, are wonderful friends and supporters of ZOA. She is a fierce supporter of Israel. She's a great freelance journalist. And she is going to introduce the great, great Mort Klein. Please, everybody, give a huge round of applause to Eri Trott.
I have the distinct honor of introducing the national president of the ZOA tonight, the incomparable Morton Klein. This room is filled with ZOA and Mort supporters who are familiar with Mort's personal story, so I'll just share a bit of it. Mort is a child of Holocaust survivors. He was born in a displaced persons camp in Germany and came to this country with his parents when he was only 4 years old. Mort grew up understanding the importance of living a Jewish life. After earning his undergraduate and graduate degrees from Temple University, Mort went to work for the federal government. He was a senior health policy analyst in the Nixon, Ford, and Carter administrations. He went on to work with Linus Pauling, the Nobel Prize-winning scientist. I understand that we have Mort's wife, Rita Klein, to thank for inspiring Mort to devote his talents and energies to standing up for Israel. Mort began by exposing the anti-Israel lies that riddled a well-known travel guide. At the publisher's request, he actually rewrote the guide. Mort's activism got the attention of ZOA supporters who encouraged him to run for ZOA national president. That was over 30 years ago. Mort ran and won. Mort became the face of ZOA and its driving force. He took a distinguished but declining organization and brought it back to life, making it one of the most influential pro-Israel organizations in America. He established a ZOA campus department, a government relations department in Washington, D.C., and the ZOA Center for Law and Justice. For over 30 years, Mort has been advocating tirelessly for Israel and the Jewish people. He's frequently on television and radio. He's been published and quoted in hundreds of articles and books. He speaks regularly at venues big and small across the U.S. and around the world. And he's provided expert testimony at congressional hearings, having an impact. As just one example, shortly after Mort testified about moving the U.S. Embassy from Tel Aviv to Jerusalem, President Trump announced that the embassy would be moved to Jerusalem. As many of you well know, Mort is not just tireless, he's also fearless. Even if it means standing alone or being publicly condemned, Mort will not be deterred. He is resolute about telling the truth about Israel and its enemies. Because of time constraints, here are just two of so many examples. Under Mort's leadership, ZOA opposed the Oslo Accords and later opposed Israel's withdrawal from Gaza in 2005. Virtually the entire American Jewish communal world embraced Oslo and the Gaza withdrawal, but Mort and the ZOA understood that both of these decisions would lead to more terrorism against Jews and Israelis. Tragically, they were right. As the Wall Street Journal said, when the history of the American Jewish struggle in these years is written, Mr. Klein will emerge as an outsized figure. Please join me in welcoming to the podium a fierce, courageous, and heroic warrior for Israel and the Jewish people, ZOA National President Morton Klein.
As a child of Holocaust survivors,
I personally felt the horrors of unbridled anti-Semitism.
We are trying to educate American Jews in the truth of these issues. I think once Jews understand it, there will be strong supporters.
Morton Klein is here, the national president of the Zionist Organization of America.
Joining us on the line is Morton Klein. He's national president of the Zionist Organization of America, one of the only actual Zionist organizations in America.
Joining us now is Morton Klein, national president of ZOA. Shalom.
Shalom, shalom. It's great to be in the holy Jewish city of Yerushalayim.
You're one of the most effective and important voices that we have on this subject. It's why I love the ZOA. I love what you do. I love your effectiveness.
Everyone, could I ask you, could you stand up and give an enormous round of applause to the great Mort Klein?
Well, thank you so much. I'm up here because what this audience needs right now, we've just determined, is one more speech. But before, I would like to let all of you know that we need to thank Rita Cosby for giving of her time freely, without compensation, and to mention that today is Rita Cosby's birthday. Happy birthday to Rita. I have to say, Rita, I know it's your 40th birthday, but you don't look any younger than 40. You look 40. So. As many of you know, I have Tourette syndrome, so you might hear me make sounds that I can't control. That's one of the reasons they made me speak last, thinking maybe there'll be less people to listen. All of you, simply by your attending this extraordinary Superstar Gala, shows clearly you're all strong, proud, courageous, activist Zionists, that you are all strongly committed to and love the Jewish state of Israel and its people. Thank you all for being here. It's so important. And I'm telling you, it heartened me when I saw the interruptions of people screaming against us. My God, we matter. They know we exist. They're worried about us. Thank you. ZOA fights the information wars against Israel with work done by our fabulous researcher, headed by Liz Burney. Through ZOA's various departments, we will continue to fight Jew hatred and Israel bashing that we're seeing all across America, Amsterdam, France, Belgium, the campuses throughout the world. We fight for Israel through our Center for Law and Justice, headed by Susan Tuckman. We write strong demand letters, file Title VI lawsuits, more than anyone else, and we filed them beginning before anyone else, protecting Jewish students from harassment and discrimination. We at ZOA alone among the Jewish groups, fought successfully to reinterpret Title VI to cover Jewish students, which it never did before. Until ZOA's work, Jewish students couldn't sue universities. All the lawsuits you see under Title VI is solely because of the Zionist Organization of America. It took us 6 years, a 6-year campaign, 40 members of Congress that helped make this happen. I hate to tell you. I begged the other organizations to help us to reinterpret Title VI. I begged ADL and AIPAC and AJ Committee and the other ones. And they said, no, you should not do this, Mort. You should not be suing people. You should be using diplomacy, not lawsuits. Nonsense, ADL, AIPAC, AJ Committee. Nonsense.
We fight for Israel through our campus program headed by Jonathan Ginsburg, teaching students how to respond to the Jew-hating, Israel-hating lies that we have experienced on campus. We're going to be using Alan Dershowitz's book to help students understand, in addition to what we tell them, how to fight back against these lies. We fight for Israel through our government relations program on Capitol Hill, led by Dan Pollack, educating members of Congress on the Arab-Islamic war against the Jewish state, holding annual lobbying days for our supporters to meet Congress members and their staff. We were the first organization to embrace the legislation to move the embassy from Tel Aviv to Jerusalem. Everyone else said, no, 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 don't do this. This will cause terrorism and end the chances for peace. How wrong they were. We were leaders in getting the Taylor-Force Act passed, which says if the Palestinian Authority continues to pay Arabs lifetime pensions to murder Jews, they should get no support. Donald Trump, because of this legislation that he signed, ended the $500 million a year that we give the Palestinian Authority, and I'm sorry to say that President Biden has ignored this law and not only reinstated the $500 million to the Palestinian Authority, he increased it to $800 million. That's what Joe Biden did. And we fight for Israel through our student and adult trips to Eretz Yisrael, our powerful writings in the media, appearances on TV, radio, lectures throughout the entire United States of America. And yet little tiny Israel, 1/8 of 1% of the landmass of the Middle East, 7 million Jews compared to hundreds of millions of Arabs. The world, including this administration, is demanding that Israel give away parts of its holy Jewish land to establish a Palestinian Arab state, which will surely be a terrorist state, which will be adjacent to Israel's longest border. Israel has given the Arabs all of Gaza. We gave it to them. What happened? They elected Hamas as their leaders. 80% of them voted for Hamas. Hamas built 400 miles of terror tunnels, and they launched, since 2005, 35,000 rockets against Israel to try to murder Jews. The fact that thousands of Jews have not been killed by these rockets, to me, is absolute proof that there is a God in heaven protecting the Jewish people. We at ZOA, with your help, with the help of many in Congress, will work to ensure that a dangerous terrorist state would be an unjust disaster, and we cannot let that ever happen. And I urge all of you, write to the other big organizations. Every one of them supports a Palestinian Arab state. After 10/7, write to them, tell AJ Committee, AIPAC, ADL, the Washington Institutes of Near East Policy, Dennis Ross, tell them to stop supporting a Palestinian state. Publicly reject it. ZOA is the only major Jewish group that publicly rejects a Palestinian Arab state. During these difficult times, it may be comforting and uplifting and inspiring to remember that America has had a love affair with the idea of reestablishing the Jewish state of Israel since America's beginnings 250 years ago. Abraham Lincoln, many times in his speeches, said, reestablishing Israel is a noble dream shared by most Americans. President John Adams said, I really wish the Jews would reestablish Judea and Samaria as an independent Jewish nation. John Adams didn't call it the West Bank. He called it by its true name, Yehuda and Shomron. Teddy Roosevelt in speeches said, it seems to me entirely proper we must start a Zionist state around Jerusalem. He understood Jerusalem's unique holiness to the Jewish people. It is not holy to Muslims. We should make that clear. It's never mentioned in the Quran. When they controlled it, they allowed it to become Islam. And let me tell you something. They say, well, Muhammad went from Jerusalem to heaven. Well, read the Quran. It says that Muhammad had a dream. It didn't happen. He had a dream. And he went from the farthest mosque to heaven. That's what it says, not Jerusalem. Well, at the time of the Quran, there was not a single mosque in Jerusalem. So Muhammad could not be going from a mosque in Jerusalem. It simply did not exist. In 1891,
The great Methodist lay leader William Blackstone presented a petition to President Benjamin Harrison, calling on the U.S. to urge the Ottoman Empire to turn Palestine over to the Jews. And remember, Palestine was a region. It wasn't a country. It's never been a country. There are no Palestinian kings and queens. There was never any Palestinian currency. He got 400 signatories, 1891, overwhelmingly non-Jewish, including the Chief Justice of the Supreme Court, the Speaker of the House, the chairs of the House Ways and Means Committee, the House Foreign Affairs Committee, future President William McKinley, the mayors of Baltimore, Boston, Chicago, New York, Philadelphia, and Washington, editors of the leading newspapers in the U.S., the leading Episcopal, Methodist, and Roman Catholic clergy, business leaders like Cyrus McCormick, John Rockefeller, and J.P. Morgan, urged the reestablishment of the Jewish state in 1891. This was a time when the American Jewish community was neither large nor powerful. There was no AIPAC, there was no ZOA, no AJ committee, there was no Israel lobby in the U.S., but the leaders of America understood the justice of reestablishing the Jewish state of Israel. The leaders of the American Gentile community went on record supporting a U.S. diplomatic effort to create a Jewish state on land that the Bible, the Torah, stated was given to the Jews by God Almighty. And it is just, it is right, and it is the thing that these non-Jews wanted to make sure happens. How right they all were. Here's something else you probably do not know. Benjamin Franklin, Thomas Jefferson, and John Adams, you've heard of these guys. They fought against the establishing the Great Seal of the U.S., which is now an eagle. They didn't want that to be the seal. Franklin, Jefferson, and Adams fought to instead have the Great Seal be Moses standing on the shore, extending his hand over the sea, causing the sea to overwhelm Pharaoh and his military with rays from a pillar of fire above in the clouds, reaching down this Moses to express that Moses was acting by the command of God as the children of Israel looked on. This is the seal that Franklin, Jefferson, and John Adams pushed hard to make the official seal. There was a vote. It barely lost. Moses, the Jewish Hebrew, splitting the sea to destroy the Egyptian army, almost became the seal of the United States of America. We should be very proud of that possibility. And in 1948, when they were discussing supporting Israel's reestablishment at the UN, Clark Clifford, the White House chief counsel, pressured President Truman to support the new state of Israel, saying, "Mr. President, it comports with America's traditional values." And to support the reestablishment of Israel, Clark Clifford, in speeches, in discussions with Truman and others in the cabinet, quoted from Deuteronomy. Clifford would say, a non-Jew, "Behold, I have set the land before you. Go in and possess the land which the Lord swore unto your fathers, Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, to give it unto them, and to their seed after them," unquote. With the pressure from Clifford and others, and the polls in America showing that by over 3-1, Americans supported reestablishing the state of Israel, Truman made the historic decision to vote for the UN to recognize the state of Israel in 1948. Thank God for Clark Clifford and President Truman. So you see, the American people and its leaders had a love affair and support for Israel since America's founding. And even today, the polls show 82% of Americans support Israel over the Arab Muslims in this war for survival for Israel and for the survival of the West. And today, ladies and gentlemen, we have re-elected President Donald Trump. Who is the greatest friend we Jews have ever had in the White House. What he's done, many of us know, there was a law passed in 1995 to move the embassy. For 23 years, every president, Republican and Democrat, vetoed that, ignored that by invoking the security waiver, saying it might be too dangerous. But Donald Trump finally, when he became president, moved the U.S. Embassy from Tel Aviv to Jerusalem. Donald Trump recognized the Golan Heights as a sovereign Israel territory. Donald Trump canceled the horrific Iran deal, which from its beginning, 13 years after the deal was signed, all restrictions end, which means legally Iran could develop nuclear weapons. He began powerful sanctions on Iran. It so bankrupted Iran, they went down to $4 billion in reserves. And if that had continued, Hamas and Hezbollah and the Houthis could not have been armed and could not have been funded by Iran. They were broke under President Trump. October 7th would never have happened if we had maintained Trump's sanctions on Iran. He did this. He also signed the Taylor Force Act to stop money to the Palestinian Authority. He ended aid to UNRWA, which teaches Arab kids to hate and harm Jews. This week, President Biden sent $300 million to the Palestinian Authority. This week, he did it. After what we've seen with 10-7, after Abbas bragged that Palestinians were part of 10-7, and he bragged that Sinwar was my dear friend and a great leader, and despite that, we're giving him $300 million more. Donald Trump publicly proclaimed that the communities in Judea and Samaria, the Jewish communities, are legal under international law. And of course, he established the famous Abraham Accords. And now, since he's been reelected, President-elect Donald Trump is establishing the most pro-Israel cabinet in the history of the United States since Israel was established. He's given us Senator Rubio of Florida as Secretary of State, a fabulous friend of Israel. He's given us Elise Stefanik as the ambassador to the UN, an extraordinary friend of Israel who got rid of 3 Ivy League presidents because of their insane hostility to Israel. He's giving us a tremendous friend of Israel as defense minister called Peter Hegseth. Peter Hegseth, this past year, made a speech where he said, quote, "Moving the U.S. Embassy to Jerusalem was a miracle from God. And there's no reason," said Hegseth, "why the miracle of the establishment of the Jewish temple on the Temple Mount is not possible. We must establish a Jewish temple on the Temple Mount," said Peter Hegseth. So don't tell me about he's a problem in any way, shape, or form. We Jews love Peter Hegseth. We want him to be defense secretary. Representative Mike Waltz, great friend of Israel, head of the National Security Council. Kristi Noem, great friend of Israel, head of Homeland Security. John Ratcliffe, great friend of Israel, head of the CIA. Lee Zeldin, also a great friend of Israel, has an important post as a cabinet minister. And RFK Jr., who has been nominated to be the head of Health and Human Services. Let me tell you, he is a personal friend of mine. I talk to him regularly. I've been to his home. I know him. RFK, when he has an Israel issue, before he goes on a TV show, before he wants to write something, he comes to me or others at ZOA to ask our advice. What should he say? What position should he take? The man, RFK, is a great friend of Israel. And last but not least, the new ambassador, Mike Huckabee. People say to me, "Mort, don't you wish you had become the ambassador to Israel?" I said, yes, I would have liked that, but I'm glad that President Trump chose someone more pro-Israel than me, Mike Huckabee. Mike Huckabee says, words are so powerful. As the Talmud says, he quotes the Talmud, that one word can hang from the thread of one word. A mountain can hang from the thread of one word. He says words are so important. He says never say West Bank, it's Judea and Samaria. Never say settlements, it's Jewish communities. Never, ever talk about a Palestinian state solution. That'll be a disaster for Israel. And never talk about occupation. There is none. There was never a Palestinian Arab country. This is nonsense. This is holy Jewish land called Judea and Samaria. We Jews are Judeans. Jew is a contraction of the word Judean. This is our holy land, not only given to us by God Almighty in the Torah, but also numerous UN resolutions, from the League of Nations in the 20s to the UN in 1948. And Mike Huckabee understands this all too well. In fact, he sent me an email. I'll share it with you, a private email. He said, Mort, I want to be as bold an advocate for Israel as you and ZOA are. He said, I want to be like ZOA and you when it comes to Israel. That's what Mike Huckabee sent me. His appointments, oh, by the way, you should know, Mike Huckabee, Elise Stefanik, and Lee Zeldin have all been honorees on this stage of ZOA honoring those three. We know how to pick them. So these appointments are the total opposite of Biden's appointments. Almost every appointment he made that affects Israel is someone who is hostile to Israel. And I find it remarkable that Jewish leaders are now condemning Getz, potential Attorney General Getz, for being anti-Semitic, for being hostile to Jews. Nonsense. I know him. He is very pro-Israel. But what's amazing, they never said a word, these Jewish leaders, about Mahir Bitar, the head of National Security, Intelligence National Security Council, who made speeches called How to Demonize Israel. They never said a word about Hadi Amar, that Biden appointed as a liaison to Israel, a man who said, the terror war against Jews, this inspired me, said Hadi Amar. I heard no condemnations. I heard no condemnations about Robert Malley, a pro-Hamas, pro-Iran man. Where were the Jewish leaders when the Democrats were appointing terrible people? So I believe their criticisms here are more political than anything else. Donald Trump said on day one, I will immediately end slow-walking critically necessary arms and ammunition to Israel. I will immediately end restricting critically necessary arms to Israel. I will reinstate sanctions and reinstate cutting U.S. aid to Iran and the PA and UNRWA. By the way, the PA, since October 7th, has gotten $2.1 billion from this administration. $2.1 billion. They got nothing in the previous administration. I believe that this president will end appeasement and the intentionally, yes, I believe is intentionally strengthening the Islamic Nazi-like Republic of Iran and the Palestinian Authority. Trump proclaimed, quote, I will defend our Jewish citizens. I will inform every college president that if you, Mr. and Mrs. President, don't end anti-Semitic propaganda, if you do not address and stop anti-Semitism, then you will lose your accreditation and you will lose all federal support. That's what Trump said. He went further. We will not subsidize the creation of terrorist sympathizers to Arab Islamic terrorists like Hamas and Hezbollah in Iran. We're not going to do it, said Trump, certainly not on American soil. Next, I will inform every educational institution in America. If they permit violence and harassment and threats against Jewish students, the schools will be held accountable for violating the civil rights laws that ZOA made change to include Jews. That is what Donald Trump said. And in that speech, he said, Jewish Americans must have equal protection under the law. We must move swiftly to restore safety for Jewish people and Jewish students on American streets. This is our new president, Donald Trump. God bless him for properly protecting the Jewish people. And you know these people screaming, free, free Palestine, free, free Palestine. Well, you know, Gaza has been free since 2005. There hasn't been a single Jew or member of the IDF in Gaza. They are free. They have 2 million Arabs, no Jews, no Israeli soldiers. It is already a totally free area for Gaza Arabs. In 2005, Hamas terrorists were elected to run Gaza by 80% of the Gaza Arabs, even though the Hamas charter calls for the murder of every Jew in this room and throughout the world, and for the destruction of Israel. 80% of the Gaza Arabs voted for Hamas. Hamas immediately executed their rivals, killed all the gay people, And since 2005, they've launched 35,000 rockets against us. October 7th wasn't the first horrible day. It is the most recent horrible day. So when it comes to these people screaming and the people on college campuses making outrageous statements, what they're really saying when they condemn Israel is that we are Hamas, we want to globalize the intifada against every Jew, F the Jews and worse. They're really screaming, we are Nazis, we're the Ku Klux Klan, we're the brown shirts. And we oppose women's rights and gay rights because those are Hamas's beliefs. Shame on these low-life morons and haters. My recommendation to these administrations on campuses, my recommendation about these people who are doing these things on campus, arrest, 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 expel, 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 bring in the National Guard. Never appease, but fight, fight, fight. Barbara Tuchman, the great intellectual scholar and historian, she wrote, quote, "The rule of human behavior is that yielding to an enemy's demands does not satisfy them, but by exhibiting a position of weakness, augments the enemy. It doesn't terminate hostility, but excites hostility. The Torah teaches us to fight Jew hatred by being strong, proud, and powerful Jews, fighting back, working to strengthen the Jewish state, raising proud Jewish children, giving them a great Jewish education, attending synagogue, celebrating the Jewish holidays, and building more Jewish institutions. Build, build, build. That's how we should respond to these haters." And we should make it clear to them that we did not come here, we Jews, to Israel as colonialists. We came neither like the British imperialists, nor like the French colonizers in Algeria, nor like the English and Dutch settlers in South Africa. We didn't come like immigrants seeking a new continent, a new homeland. We came back home as the inhabitants of a country who had been driven away from it by force. The Arabs compelled us to use force. We didn't drive them out. They ran away at the instigation of their leaders through their own lack of real roots in the land, which is not their home. Had the Arab leaders, their own brothers, allowed them to settle in their countries, their true home, the problem of the Arab refugees would have been settled long ago. Just the problem of Jewish refugees has been settled. We did not let our Jewish brethren vegetate in refugee camps. And you should also remember, we Jews, rightly or wrongly, offer the Arabs a state 8 times in the last 80 years. 8 times they were offered a state. The first was in 1937, the Peel Commission, where they were offered 95% of the rest of Palestine. The Jews got 5%. They turned it down. To 2008, where Ehud Olmert offered them 97% of Judea and Samaria, 3% of Israel, half of Jerusalem, billions of dollars in aid, and Mahmoud Abbas said, "No way, Jose." God hardened his brain. I will end by saying, Oliver Wendell Holmes said a man must be a part of the actions and the passions of his time. The Midrash on Esther, chapter 4, verse 14 says, "If you keep silent now, if you refrain from protesting on behalf of your brethren, woe to you in the day of judgment, for you had the opportunity to act, but did not act." I promise you, ZOA, with your help, will act, we will fight for Israel and the Jews with all of our heart and soul against the lies and the dangers that Israel is under. We will continue to make clear there is no occupation. It's holy Jewish land given to the Jews by God and under international law. We will make it clear Jerusalem is holy to Jews. It is not holy to Muslims. We'll expose the lie of Israeli genocide, for God's sakes. In 1948, there were 150,000 Arabs in the area of Israel. Today, there are 2 million Arabs in the area of Israel. Whoever is in charge of Israel's genocide program must be fired immediately. It's not working. What an insane allegation of genocide. We'll make it clear that Palestinian Arabs, Hamas and Hezbollah and Iran are fighting Israel not over land, not over statehood, but simply to destroy Israel's very existence. A Palestinian state would simply give Israel's enemies more land and more power to promote their ugly, ugly agenda. It's encouraging to read a quote from Mark Twain. I'm ending with this. If the statistics are right, the Jews constitute but 1/4% of the human race. It suggests a nebulous puff of stardust lost in the blaze of the Milky Way. The Jew would hardly be heard from. They're so few in numbers. But the Jew is heard, has always been heard. He is as prominent as the planet as any other people. His importance is extravagantly out of proportion to the smallness of his numbers. His contributions to the world's list of great names in literature, science, art, music, law, finance, medicine, abstruse learning are out of all proportion to the weakness of his numbers. The Jew has made a marvelous fight in this world in all the ages, has done so with his hands tied behind him. He could be vain of himself and be excused for it. Others have filled the planet with sound and splendor, then faded to dream stuff and passed away. Said Twain, the Greeks and Romans arose, they made a vast noise, they're now gone. Other people have sprung up, held their torch high for a time, but it burned out. They sit in twilight now and vanish. The Jews saw them all, survived them all, is now what he always was, exhibiting no decadence, no infirmities of age, no weakening of his parts, no slowing of his energies, no dulling of his alert but aggressive mind. All things are mortal but the Jews. All forces pass but the Jews remain. So we should have confidence to be strong, to not be afraid. For God is with the Jewish people in Eretz Yisrael. The cause of Israel, our cause, is moral and just. We must act and speak out with courage. Truth and justice and God are on the side of Eretz Yisrael. With your help, with the strength and the will of the Israeli people, with the strength and the will of the extraordinary Israel Defense Forces, with the help and the strength of Almighty God, new miracles will occur we cannot foresee. They will occur. And the people of Israel, as the Holy Torah promises, we are an eternal people, never to be destroyed. The people of Israel shall dwell in our holy land of Eretz Yisrael for eternity. We will clearly prevail. Thank you very, very much. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you for joining the ZOA Superstar Gala. This concludes our program. Dessert is served.
And now there is dessert behind this room. So the program only ends after you increase the amount of calories you've eaten for today.